Wilson takes off. Then the freshman gets the corner. It's a foot race. Knocked out at the one. Now you see the talents.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Toafili in motion. Got a man down the sidelines. It's him, Toafili, and he is off. One man to beat, cuts it back, and brought down to the 20-yard line by Sheridan Jones. They're going to say touchdown. He landed on somebody. Toafili with a magic act, and they're calling it a touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Edwards with a lay. Donovan Edwards down the sideline. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown, Michigan, the Don.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Looking for an option. To the end zone he goes. Touchdown, Canes. Jacoby George.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time in the shotgun. Play fake. Allard to the end zone. Touchdown. Penn State. Khalil Dinkins.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
They're going to go Wildcat and snap it directly to Mappa. He tries the right-hand side. He finds Pater. That's a Clemson touchdown.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go. We start another week. 365 Sports. We bring you yet another week in the month of August that leads us into college football season with a game in a couple of weeks. David Smoke here, along with on the set, Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke. Craig is back from vacation, a full week of being able to do whatever the hell he wanted. And what are some of the things you got done?
I traveled a little bit, cleaned the house a good bit in terms of cleaning out some old stuff, kind of spring clean. Took a couple of days to do that and just get reorganized as a human being in a way. A lot of stuff that you put off and you don't necessarily always have time for. I took some of that extra time to do some of those types of projects and rested quite a bit after our trip to Vegas and just the gamut of doing shows every day. Just got a little bit of that break and tuned out basically for a few days. So glad to be back, and feels weird to be back, honestly, after that many days. I'm sure that's how Paul felt as well after his trip, and everybody else that's taking a little bit of time, but glad to be here and glad that there's one less week of waiting until college football now that I'm back. That's one more week that's off the calendar now.
Yeah, one more week closer to games, and we'll have those, of course, when that Dublin game is played in Ireland with Florida State and also Georgia Tech. The AP Top 25 poll is out. The Top 25 poll is out. Nope, wrong one, Garrett.
That's if they were going to be in a tournament.
Yeah, that's part of another topic in this the smokehouse, the smokestack. Well, Georgia, not a surprise, although I thought there would be a push from Ohio State. The five that you would think are in the top five in whatever particular order, it's Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. Now, there was a thought that maybe someone moves into five, but those are pretty much the five we've seen with most of the various polls. And so there we are. Big 12 has Utah in at 12. Also today, others in the Big 12, Oklahoma State, K-State 17-18, Arizona, Kansas at 21 and 22.
Yeah, I this is maybe the first time I've ever felt that the AP poll didn't get too stuck on let's put this name in there and put them up really high because they've been a name. They did it. Michigan, Texas. USC is in the poll. I don't necessarily think they should be in either poll based on what we know about them right now. But other than that, I don't really have a problem with anybody and where they're ranked. I don't think anybody's overrated. I don't think anybody's potentially too underrated. I think everybody's about where they should be.
That's why they play games.
Yeah.
That's why they play the games.
I think it's impossible to tell who's overrated or underrated right now. I mean, we haven't seen anything of these teams. We're going off of all the information that's available, and so I think based on everything that everybody knows at this point, and then I'm sure there's a little secret sauce for some people that have a little bit more insight on some teams than others. I don't think there's anything that's jarring or shocking necessarily at first glance. The Big 12 having just a team at 12 as their highest ranked seed, I think that's going to be part of that gauntlet to overcome in terms of just public perception, and you're going to have to be pretty close to perfect, I think, to get the benefit of the doubt, whereas there's teams in other leagues that I think have a little bit more room for error. And so, yeah, the best team ranked at number 12, I mean, would I rank anybody higher than that? Not necessarily. But, yeah, I mean, I think Oklahoma State getting some respect is good to see because that's not necessarily always the case. And even above Kansas State in one of those polls, which is interesting, even though it's just by one spot. KU you expected to see there. K-State you expected to see there. Oklahoma State didn't know for sure how they would be treated nationally. And Utah was the foregone conclusion they'd probably be the highest ranked, although thought K-State would maybe have something to say about that as well. So as far as the Big 12 teams, I mean, I guess, Arizona in there as well. Got to get used to including them, and they're getting some preseason love. So that's a handful of teams, and don't think you can be too upset about that. It's a good starting point for the league.
You look at teams that have the hardest schedules. Oklahoma, all of the 6 times they're going to play teams on their schedule, 6 of them are in the top 15. Florida, 5 of them in the SEC, plus their non-conference game that they have inside the top 15. So there's a lot of games. We've kind of highlighted those 2 for their schedules, and there you are with 6 top 15 opponents on their schedules, Oklahoma and Florida.
I mean, we've been hearing about Georgia, pretty regularly now, where them coming in at number 1 is almost like they're the new placeholder team that you just start there, whereas it was Alabama for the longest time. And Alabama still at number 5 is not bad post Nick Saban. After all of the changeover and just the newness, that's still very respectable. Texas at 4. Very interesting after the run that they had last year and first year in the SEC. I mean, that top 5 sexy, man. There's some interesting storylines there. Oregon being in the Big 10. So, that's going to be a hell of a race at the top. And the fact that there's this expanded playoff, I think, just makes it that much more exciting that you're going to have more teams that feel like they're in it longer than, we lost our second game, we're totally done, it's week 6, our season's toast, best we can do is go make a good bowl game. It's like, no, you can be like the 12th team in the playoff and cause some hell at the end, and that's what's very exciting about this.
One other note about Florida, guys, is that not only do they have the 6 teams inside the top 15 on their schedule, they have 8 of the top 25 teams on their schedule.
Yeah, and one of those teams on their schedule that's not in the top 25 is UCF, who could very well wind up in the top 25. One of the other teams they have is Mississippi State, who's in the SEC. And, if the SEC is really what it says it is, then even a Mississippi State team with a new coach, still probably not a slouch by slouch standards. So, they don't, they'll be favored for sure in 2 games and probably in the UCF game. But the other 8 or 9 on the schedule, probably not. And that, again, if Billy Napier gets them turned around this year, it's going to be because they were ready to take on the monstrous schedule that they got.
Also, by the way, West Virginia, Iowa State, and Colorado were in that others receiving votes. Also, the G5, Boise State, SMU. No, excuse me. I can't say that. They're in the ACC. Boise State, Liberty, Memphis, UTSA, Tulane, and Appalachian State are all just on the outside receiving votes.
I mean, I'm sure there will be the occasional team that jumps up, but that seems like it's pretty much going to be your new class of Boise States, Boise State included. But, the teams as far as the G5s go, those handful of teams that you just mentioned seem like they're kind of the best set up to be in that conversation every single year at the start of the year, the top 25 or placement within it during the course of the season. So, yeah, those teams all sound about right. Those are all the best G5s that are out there now. So, yeah, any one of those could pop up and find themselves in that top 25, and that wouldn't be much of a shocker, but they're definitely still not in a position where they're getting much in terms of preseason love. They're going to have to work their way into the poll, and especially at the beginning where, you don't necessarily have people holding the slot open for them because it's so wide open and these leagues are so big now that, you're going to put Iowa there as opposed to giving Tulane the benefit of the doubt or whatever. So they had their work cut out for them right out of the gate, but, there's a lot of high hopes for SMU and that they're going to be pretty good. And I know there's some feelings that, Tulane, even losing Willie Fritz, hired a pretty good coach, and Memphis has got some high hopes. So, we'll see what kind of noise the G5s can make, but this is the start of a new era for them, and an interesting one, because as much as we talk about the uphill climb for the Big 12 or even for the ACC, the Troys, the Tulanes, those schools have the biggest hill to climb for sure.
West Virginia has that opening game against Penn State, which would put them right inside the top 25 if they happen to win. And then, of course, the games, 5 of them against Big 12 teams that are ranked, 4 of them, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and also Arizona. And we'll see how that's kind of like a washing machine of teams going in and out. But there's and I saw somebody in the chat, by the way, welcome. Thank you for being a part of what we do. Please hit the like button now, if you don't mind. And if you have not subscribed, we'd love for you to do that and spread the word. This is released for one reason: to start conversation, to get matchups and hype them. It's also released because this is something that traditionally has been going on forever. Ralph Russo of the Associated Press will join us with some other nuggets. He'll join us at the bottom of the hour at 3:30. All right, now, so let's say this was the final ranking. Now, this is, again, the Associated Press. There's also the ESPN coaches poll. But let's say this was the college football standings that the committee had put together. This is how the first round would go, knowing that some teams ranked higher would not be given a bye because it's about conference championships. But you would have those 4 games: Boise State, Oregon, Boise State being what would be the highest ranked group of 5, Notre Dame and Ole Miss. You'd have Michigan, Texas, which would happen to be a rematch if it worked out that way, Penn State and Alabama. And you wonder, when they were to go into these committee meetings before the last week, would they want to avoid Michigan, Texas, because of the fact they played earlier? That would have been 12, 13 weeks ago, because they play early on in the season. Then Utah, Georgia, Florida State, Ohio State would have the first round byes for winning and the highest ranked of the conference champions.
Yeah, I think this would be a heck of a playoff if it happened. I'm still going to pick Memphis as my G5 team in the playoff, although Boise State would be the second one. And if Ohio State is not in the quarterfinals to start out this playoff thing, it's an absolutely, not a huge failure. If they're in the playoff, they're in the playoff. But Ryan Day has this roster set up better than he ever has. And
we have Dan Hope of 11 Warriors is going to join us. We'll discuss that with him. But, Paul, you're right. It's almost as if they have to run the table or it's a disappointment. I don't think that's fair. I don't care how good they are, how deep they are, how much talent they have, what they have. If you get in the playoffs and you finish 12-1 or whatever it is and you lose, of course, you don't want to be the one that loses to Michigan if you're Ohio State again. But that's almost like you have to go unbeaten to fulfill everybody's expectations and scratch their itch.
Well, it's not their fault. I mean, it's been media-generated and fan-generated all offseason. So, I mean, there's always high expectations of Ohio State to begin with, but it does seem like just all of the combined noise is setting up for a pressure cooker for Ryan Day in some cases of, very little room for any slippage. And just in terms of the playoff, I mean, they will find themselves in that order. There would be an uproar, certainly, and a lot of things would have to happen, you would think, for them to not end up in a expanded playoff. But it looks sexy. It looks great. And sure, I could get down with an Oregon-Utah Fiesta Bowl just on the surface all on its own. That would be fine. I'm sure I'd watch most of that game. Or at a Notre Dame-Georgia Sugar Bowl, I'd probably watch a good deal of that. But I can guarantee you I will watch the entirety of a Notre Dame-Georgia second-round playoff game in the Sugar Bowl. I will be there for the opening kickoff, and so long as the game remains entertaining there till the very end of it. And so, I think just the playoff and the uncertainty and the excitement that it could bring and the anticipation for it is what makes this year along with all of the realignment, that much more interesting. So I'm thrilled about the expanded playoff. And look, if it sucks, then I'll be the first to eat my words in January or, whenever we get to that point where we feel like that's the case. But just looking at it on paper, I understand that, you beat Tennessee in week 6 and you didn't eliminate them now necessarily from getting to the postseason, but you did mess up their seeding potentially, and you did make it harder on them. And I think, the best are going to be standing tall at the very end no matter what, and they're going to all have the opportunity to prove that, as opposed to you didn't get into this particular game, so even though you might have been the best, you didn't get that shot. Now there's going to be no excuses. Like, if you didn't get in, I'm sorry, you were 13th in the country, you should have won more games. Like, there's not really going to be an excuse. I'm sure there'll be a fight over it, but I think that fight will pale in comparison to who should be number 4 and who was deserving if they were at number 5. So I'm excited to see this, and on paper, I think it looks amazing. I mean, Alabama hosting Penn State in a playoff game in the first round. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I cannot wait for.
They got some history between those two in postseason in the bowl games as well. It would be great, by the way, is that, again, they have a chance. That's what's great about the NFL, though. There is no what if. There is no but. It's the teams get in based on criteria, based on qualifying. You can't really do that in college football. 2 notes about the Big 12. I mentioned that Penn State-West Virginia game is a chance for the Mountaineers to give the Big 12 a nice little check mark. Oklahoma State and Colorado open up against the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the FCS. In South Dakota State, we had their coach Jimmy Rogers on Friday, and North Dakota State's number 2. Those are a couple of landmines that they got to be careful of early on in the season. Last week, it was Texas and C.J. Baxter. Over the weekend, Texas A&M lost their alpha at running back Reuben Owens, expected to miss the season, out during a scrimmage. He is out, and, Max Olson, along with several different writers who had that story. What does that mean? Carter Corrales had this story. The backup or the depth chart has Le'Veon Moss, also Amari Daniels, and E.J. Smith, that's Emmett's son. Those combined have just over 1,500 yards over their careers. And Smith had already played 4 years at Stanford. Moss and Daniels are juniors at running back. 1,500 yards. They have a void. Those 3, someone, maybe all, will step up, but that does leave a mark.
I like the combo of Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels stepping up to fill that spot. What they're going to miss with Reuben Owens is this is a dude who is the top-ranked running back in the country when they signed him. He played last year as a true freshman, showed that he has some breakaway ability, some big play kind of a thing. He is of those 4 guys that they have in that roster, he's the one who is the true potential every down back. But he is the one who has the potential to be like a Quinshon Judkins or someone like that nationally that you could just turn and hand the ball to 30 times in a game. So he's out, and he's not going to be there. I think they can get by, but they're certainly going to lose the potential of having a dog.
Yeah, no, there is no Jaden Blue behind
exactly.
Reuben Owens. And Owens really last year, he had about 800 all-purpose yards, not many rushing. He didn't really do much there. But he was supposed to be their dude for this year.
I think they'll be okay. It's just not going to be one of those things where I don't think anybody is going to be a superstar like Reuben Owens had the potential to be.
Yeah, man, that's brutal news if you're at Texas University. I think you're holding your breath this week that you lose your running back based on the last couple of weeks, right? I mean, C.J. Baxter last week for UT, and then now Reuben Owens. So, yeah, that's brutal to hear that injury news for him, and then, also for just A&M fans because, like y'all said, he was expected to be more of the blue-chip bell cow superstar running back this year and show off that 5-star talent and show more than just the glimpses that we got a year ago. And now he's probably out for the season based on all of those reports. So, that's super unfortunate. Hated to see that news come down because of the excitement level surrounding him and just the fact that he's expected to be or was expected to be a huge part of this first year for Mike Elko's offense. So, that's brutal, and that's the stuff that you hate to see during this part of the month is we're so close and you're getting guys injured and knocked out for the season as we're less than a month away. So, that really sucks, both Baxter and Owens both.
We have Ralph Russo around the corner in 10 minutes with any kind of special nuggets of this history involving the AP. Meanwhile, there was this note over the weekend that's somewhat of a local note for the Central Texas area, with UT, of course, looking at their depth chart, Jaden Blue. Darian Gullett, according to C.J. Vogel, got some reps at running back over the weekend. He was a multi-talented, multi-position star for Marlin High School. Back when he transferred his last year, but then hurt himself in a pickup basketball game. A fantastic player. He was more of a receiver at high school, catching passes rather than running with it, but that's interesting as they try to find options. They have plenty in that depth chart, but without Baxter, obviously that means everybody else moves up one spot. Let's see. Oh, on the set in front of me, can you see it at all, Garrett? I don't think you can you? Do I need to? There's a tailgate game, and we got some more to get to. We'll get that in just Victory Tailgate. There's one of those tailgate games where you try to hook that little, what would you call it?
It's a ring. Like
a ring on a hook. All right, there's one. Go to the main. By the way, there's that keg still here that has never been taken out. Then on the set, there are Dallas Cowboys. What is that?
It's tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe. And then there's also a container that is dominoes, right?
Lawn dice. But they also have lawn dominoes.
Okay, and there's it's got the reason that's on there because Victory Tailgate's one of our sponsors, and you can get your school. For example, I saw some comments from fans that are fans of other schools in the Big 12 and elsewhere around the country. So there you are with Victory Tailgate. Shop apparel, tailgate games, and more. VictoryTailgate.com. We appreciate them for sending those gimmies.
Our link is in the description, so if you click on that one, it'll take you right to it and go there. So,
all right, Baylor had a scrimmage on Saturday night. I happened to be there. So was Jack McKenzie and a little bit of other media. Not a lot, really. I had a chance to ask, as they were now closing in on, from Saturday, 3 weeks from the opener. For Baylor against Tarleton State. No matter who they're playing against, they still have not named a quarterback. And I think it's getting a little bit late in the game with DeQuan Finn and Sawyer Robertson. I don't know if that means that neither one of them have stood out enough or they're just waiting as the competition's that tight. Here's Dave Aranda.
Dave, when do you need to name a starting quarterback? Is there a, weekend before the first game?
I think the sooner is better. Sooner is better for what you could do when you name a guy. Then you can give him more reps. You can your team will kind of coalesce around him, and you can if there's right now there's this set of plays for this quarterback, and then there's similar, but then these set of plays for that quarterback. You can kind of narrow all that down, and so we need to get that done. We're fighting to do that.
Are you disappointed nobody is jumped out there, or is it that much of a close competition?
It's a close competition. Yeah, guys are battling, and when I say that, I mean Sawyer's battling, and I think DeQuan is battling. I think the things that Sawyer did today was the leadership and the poise in the pocket. There's times when Sawyer's back there and there's a nervous energy about him, and today was really calm and poised and made some throws where he stepped into it and was way impressive. And then I thought DQ was able to see edge pressure and get us out of it and get us into something else. And that was good to see him do that. So everyone is making strides and battling, and so it's a positive for us. But we got to get to a resolution.
All right. So when I texted 4 to 6 people about what they saw, there was a scrimmage. Obviously, media not invited to it. The offensive line left. Some guys did not. They were rested. They did not practice. Maybe try to help them stay healthy. Otherwise, that did kind of create some problems with pressure on the quarterbacks. The front defensive line apparently was active, maybe because they're good or because of that. But overall, kind of like it was, I don't know, I wasn't there, but that's kind of the report from 4 to 6 different people that I was able to text over the weekend after Saturday night to find out how it went.
Yeah, I guess it could be like a good news, bad news situation if you have two guys that can run this offense, but neither have separated themselves. And I think that's what you'd rather have is you know who the alpha dog is. I know the cliche is if you've got two, you've got none. If you've got one, you've got one. But, I think it's early on. The bigger issue, and like, I think the quarterbacks will be okay if they can stay upright, because that's the biggest issue with this team. If they can stay upright, I think this team can have an offense that's much more functional than it was last year, because the offensive line was so bad last year. If they can be better this year, then the quarterbacks, whether it is DeQuan Finn or Sawyer Robertson, should be better, and the running game should be better, which means the offense will be better. But I know you got to pick one of those guys first.
Yeah, I have no idea what to make of that. I mean, I know I'm not expecting the offensive line to be very good, but just how not good is the big question. And Lord help us if it's anything like last year, because that was an absolute slog to get through, and really kind of hurt my overall enjoyment of the entire season, because each Saturday you're like, got to go watch them again and spend 4 hours watching them be incapable of scoring, blocking, doing much of the basic things that most teams are capable of doing. And that was a rough 3-9 to watch. So they've done just about everything this offseason to improve upon that. I mean, I know you still got to go play the games, and the ball doesn't always bounce your way. Sometimes it's just bad luck or whatnot. But on paper, I mean, I think we're all expecting them to be better. But you would also have, I think, hoped for at this point DeQuan Finn, given the investment made in him, to be a star that was shining and was your starting quarterback. But, yeah, I mean, that could also be just the fact that they're not letting him loose like he's going to play in a regular game. I've heard some of that. But then again, if that was also being accounted for, you think that would play into the decision, and they'd already have that, as part of the makeup of, which direction they're leaning. So the fact that they're still not deciding and that we're 2 weeks away is longer than I expected, and I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll definitely see against Tarleton State.
I thought about that's why I asked the question, because I'd wonder, and he kind of, I think, said that they'd like to make that decision so whoever is it will have a chance to get more of their plays and run them between now and the opening game. Because week number 2, with all due respect, there's no gimmies for them with Tarleton State, but then it's Utah on the road. When we come back, Ralph Russo, Associated Press, his feedback and maybe some historical nuggets on today's AP preseason poll, top 25. Also, we'll check in with a couple of the teams ranked right at the top, with Dan Hope covering Ohio State. Also, Graham Coffey, who covers Georgia. Phil Bennett back today. Phil Bennett will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. Last time I was there, went in and I called beforehand. They have a butcher shop. I called beforehand and ordered. I said, can you please get me some salmon fillets? I actually had one the other day, a fillet. It was delicious, and I've learned I can do it in my smoker outside, so whatever that fish smell that usually is not something I really like, it doesn't affect me. Salmon fillets, mahi, fresh shrimp. They have bags and bags, whatever pound you want when it comes to peeled, deveined shrimp at certain sizes you want. They have a live tank for lobster tails, or if live lobsters for lobster tails if you want that too. Plus a bunch of pork and poultry, beef in the back with hamburger all the way to whatever steak cut you like, whether it's ribeyes, bone-in, or whatever, they have it too. And then the bakery with sweets and treats, kolaches baked every day, fresh bread baked every day, and all the necessities you need for tailgating inside their front door, from pellet fuel to charcoal to cold beer and wine and more. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Rev up your summer with unbelievable savings at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get $13,000 off the new 2023 Dodge Challengers and Chargers RT. Plus, save $8,000 on the final edition Scat Pack Challengers and Chargers. Hurry in. These deals won't last long. Make this summer of Dodge at Allen Samuels in Waco. Visit us online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com. That's AllenSamuelsDCJ.com. Offer in soon. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with a Baylor Club membership today.
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
At Genco, our goal is to build long-lasting relationships while providing complete financial solutions for each step of life's journey. Our members enjoy fewer fees, lower rates on loans of all types, and higher yields on a wide variety of savings options. That's just a small part of the credit union difference. Visit Genco online, on Facebook, or come by one of our 5 locations today. Apply online for membership. Genco FCU, NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We showed you the image of the top 25, the Associated Press preseason top 25. Ralph Russo, the Associated Press, joins us for some nuggets about today and also the top 25 in general. Ralph, thanks for your time. I think looking at 1 through 25, with an exception of one could be up 1 or 2, it looked like it all kind of came together pretty easily. Do you feel like that's the case?
Yeah, the weird thing that's happened with the preseason poll, and I've been handling the poll in some way, shape, or form for about 20 years now. All the way too earlies, and then the way earlies, and then the pre-spring practice, post-spring practice, post-spring portal top 25s, the computer rankings that come out in the summer that put everything together. There's so much ranking of teams that, voters are not going to be immune to that. I mean, it's not like we have these people living in boxes, like where they can't see any of this stuff. And I will admit, I think some of our voters, and I would even encourage that, look at the SP Plus, FPI, look at those things, because I think the computer formulas generally give you some idea. In other words, if you're going to be taking in a lot of information, I think it's going to guide you to a spot where, unfortunately, I think for us, coming out as the last poll, you end up building a little bit of a groupthink because there's been so much ranking, so that by the time it does hit, it's never going to be a big surprise who's in it and the teams that are lining up that way, because I think you kind of coalesce around all this vat of information that's been building up for 6 or 8 months since the national championship game was played.
Ralph, in your personal voting of it, do you have anything that you thought, at least if it was the Ralph Russo poll, since you're with the AP, that would have been that was interesting that the rest of the voters went this way?
Yeah, listen, I think people will, because first of all, just to make it clear, I don't vote, right? We pick the voters, we count them up. We administer the poll here at the AP, but we being AP employees do not vote. So, listen, I'm not going to get on Twitter and flame the voters like some people will, right? But I will look at the poll with a critical eye just like fans do. I will look through and go, I'm not sure if I'm as into Missouri as everybody else is into, and they're number 11. And boy, like even Oregon at number 3, I don't know if I would have been that high on Oregon. So I do the same thing that you do, right? I will move some teams around in my mind. I will kind of go like, boy, Miami, like, I've been getting burned by Miami a lot over the last few years. I think I might want to see them do that before I totally buy into them. And sometimes I'll actually even sketch out a poll. So, I don't know if anything jumps out that's like really weird. I mean, usually at the bottom of the poll, those teams tend to be interchangeable anyway. And if I told you, like, I would not have ranked USC, I don't know if that's an indictment on the voters. If I would not have, I don't think I would have ranked NC State. That's not necessarily an indictment on the voters. But again, like if I'm looking at like where I might be higher than others on folks, again, I don't know if I'm quite as high on Missouri coming into this year. I might have knocked the Ducks down a couple of spots. But I would also say, like, once you get into that game, then you actually have to say, well, who are you moving up, right? And would I be comfortable moving up Alabama? I don't know. With the new coach there, no Saban, maybe I might have had Ole Miss ahead of Alabama, though that might be a prisoner of the moment. So, let's put it this way. When I do that game, I end up being happy that I'm not the one actually doing the ranking.
Yeah, I understand that completely, Ralph. There were some others receiving votes, as always, included at the bottom of the poll. Louisville led that by a pretty large margin, knocking on that door of the top 25 preseason. But no G5 love, Ralph. I know some of that's been shaken up, like SMU doesn't count anymore because they're now in the ACC. But do you feel like there's any G5 disrespect, or is that just, the natural way the poll played out? And if there was some G5 love to be given, where would you start?
So I will say this. It stood out this year because now we're only down to a P4 and there was only 4 conferences represented. So we are seeing the consolidation of power that has played out over the last couple of years in the boardroom, right with conference realignment. It showed up in the poll. I mean, we knew it was coming, but it becomes pretty stark when you see 8 SEC teams, 6 Big Ten teams. 8 of the 10 teams in the top 10 are Big Ten and SEC. Again, you kind of know it's coming, but it really shows itself up in the poll. As far as the G5, so traditionally, even when we had a little more parity and more conferences that sort of that got in there, G5 teams tend to be a little underrepresented in the preseason poll. Usually you get 1 or 2, and you're right, SMU, they're not in this rankings, but maybe if they had remained in the ACC, I could have seen them get a little love. Usually you end up with 1 or 2, but you almost always get a few more as the season goes on. I think the general feeling with the G5 is voters tend to want to see those teams do it, right? I think you have a little more volatility in those leagues, and you see teams kind of come from the middle of the pack and surge ahead. So what you end up getting is like, and of course, like Cincinnati's gone, UCF's gone, like some of these teams that have sort of built up reputations or had good runs, they're now in power conferences. So that being the case as well, Boise was number 1 of the others receiving votes in the G5. In other words, if you're looking at it like a playoff ranking, what's the first G5 team? It was Boise. I think Memphis is probably one to keep an eye on. I know Liberty got some love, but man, like, again, they're not playing any P5 Power 4 teams. So I'm a little more skeptical of giving them that ranking. But I think Memphis and Boise are the 2 that come to mind for me as like, okay, I'm going to probably keep a keen eye on them heading into the season.
So basically, in other words, if you're a group of 5 and any of the ones you just brought up that were getting some votes, you don't get the benefit of the doubt until you show there's no doubt?
I do. I think that's always kind of been the case. Now, again, it's changed in 20 years. I think what's happened is when Boise was constantly every year knocking out good seasons, they would appear in the preseason top 25. And I think Cincinnati over a period of time built up some credibility, UCF. So I think what happens now with the G5 is you kind of look around to the G5 landscape and you say, well, Boise hasn't even, they didn't even win the Mountain West last year. And Tulane had a nice run, but their coach is gone, and look what the transfer portal's done to them. So I think that what you lack is in the G5, and this is not just in the poll, but I think it really is like the story of G5 football is who are going to be the next teams that sort of surge into perennial contenders. Boise's already sort of been there, and they're always going to get respect. But is Memphis now going to be that team that starts knocking out big seasons perennially? Is it UTSA? If we look toward the Sun Belt, Coastal had a nice little run, and they're kind of fading off now. Appalachian State's generally been pretty good. So I just think that what we lack is what we had 20 years ago, which is those G5 teams or those non-BCS teams at the time, where you could sort of circle them and say, I know that team's going to be good because they've done it for 4 or 5 years, and you just don't see those 4 or 5 runs as much over the last few years. And the teams that did put together those runs, they're gone. They're in power conferences now.
How many voters do you have? I know I could look at the old first place votes, but how many are there, Ralph?
So there's 62 for the preseason poll this year, and it usually fluctuates between like 60, 61, 64. There's a couple of different ways, sort of that we come up with the number of voters, but generally will fluctuate. But generally, it will be around 62 to 64, and this year's preseason poll is 62.
Do they do this online?
Yeah, it's like so. This tells you how long I've been doing it, and this goes back. This goes back before I was in this position, but I worked at the AP. I mean, when I first started at the AP a long, long time ago, guys, the voters would either call into the desk and just dictate their poll to somebody who picked up the phone, and I was often one of the people who picked up the phone and would take the poll, or they would fax in a poll to be entered. At a certain point, email became vogue, so that was helpful, right? People would email their polls. But right now, and really over the last, time moves fast. I want to say over the last 7 or 8 years, maybe more like 10, there's an online dashboard, kind of works like an app, and voters can just pop themselves on there and drop downs and submit a poll pretty easily. So yes, technology, thank goodness, technology has advanced enough so that we're no longer taking poll phone calls at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Thank you, man. Appreciate your time, Ralph. I know it's been a busy day for you to get it set up and all the questions that people have. Thanks for giving us some answers. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Ralph Russo, Associated Press, with us. One nugget from Brett McMurphy. And then Dan Hope on Ohio State, ranked number 2, and the expectations there, demands there. Either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Since 2004, every national champion ranked among the AP preseason top 7, other than 2013 FSU, they started 11, and 2010 Auburn, they started 22nd, have won the national title. So Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame are in that trend. The exceptions are Jameis Winston and Cam Newton. And there's a reason for that, because they were once-in-a-lifetime type guys.
Yeah, it's also never, been a situation where there's been a 12-team playoff. So we'll see if that holds or not. But I do think it was quite interesting to see the conference numbers this year with the realignment now in made official. 9 SEC teams, and then you had. What was it? What's interesting is if you count Notre Dame as an ACC team, which for all intents and purposes they sort of are, it's 5 Big 12, 5 ACC, 6 Big 10, and 9 SEC. So if you were to break them up, that's probably about how you would do it. I think maybe you'd have like the Big 12 or ACC perhaps with like one less because there'd be a G5, but with no G5s, it was all those 4 conferences, those Power 4 conferences, and split. 9, 6, 5, 5, relatively closely compared to, what kind of extreme opinions people seem to have on how the Big 10 and the SEC are going to dominate. 9 still, way more than the next best at 6, but just interesting to see that breakdown in this first preseason poll of this new realignment era. So, yeah, just thought that was
if you go back to the former conferences, like the Pac-12 would have had 4 this year. The largest fall, we got a break for Dan Hope. The largest fall, Washington not in the top 25 after what was a remarkable run. Of course, so many changes, coaching staff, players, eligibility, etc. with the Huskies. When we come back,
I'm just wondering, what you mentioned the Pac-12, what's it going to take for Oregon State and Washington State to get ranked, with the schedules they're playing? I mean, how difficult is that going to be? That's going to be
lots
serious.
of wins.
Yeah.
Lots of wins and some good quality wins, just like a G5 school. And I'm not trying to say they're a G5 because I don't think of them in that particular way. Dan Hope on Ohio State, the expectations. 2 writers or analysts who cover number 1 and number 2 will join us today. Graham Coffey at 4:45 on Georgia. Ohio State on the clock with Dan Hope next on 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace. I am just another few days away from giving Rob Maxey, Dr. Maxey, a call and asking him to set me up with an MRI on my right hip. Remember, I had the injection back in April, and I have felt better, but I just kind of still feel like there's something there. Is it something major, or is it just something I'm going to have to live with? Is it something as simple as arthritis and I could take some sort of prescription to fix it? I've had needles stuck in my hip. I've had the injection in my lower back. I've done a lot of different stretching exercises. I've been smart about staying off of it. I don't run anymore, or very rarely do I run more than about 25 or 30 seconds at a time, then walk. So I'm looking at doing that, and I'm doing it because I trust them. I've used them before. And also, no question, Ideal MRI because of the cost of $497 or less, even though I'm on Medicare, is very enticing. And it's also not that difficult to get an appointment. They have a bunch of customers' patients for you because doctors call them. $497 or less inside the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco. IdealMRI.com.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed. Smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Arturo Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links drinks, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors, at Dan_Hope on Twitter. Joined us on 365 Sports Ohio State, pretty much about where everyone thought, somewhere in that top 2 to 3, maybe 1 or 3, or of course at number 2 in the preseason poll. And Dan joins Paul Craig, David Smoke on 365 Sports. Dan, everyone knew they would be ranked high. They always seem to be. Cole, what is the minimum requirement? The minimum requirement to scratch the itch for Buckeyes fans this season?
Well, the minimum is simple. It's beat Michigan. I mean, that's the number one thing that Ohio State has to do this year is beat Michigan. It's been 4 years since Ohio State has won a game against its biggest rival, 3 straight losses in that rivalry game. That's the minimum. I mean, the expectations for this Ohio State team are to go win the national championship. But when you talk about what this team absolutely has to do, you have to beat Michigan and you have to make the college football playoff.
Dan, is this got a feeling for Ryan Day of if not now, when?
Yes, I think it absolutely does, because I think this is the best roster he's had. Maybe you could put 2019 up there, but I think this is right there with that, which was his first team at Ohio State as the best roster he's had. And with all the guys who made the decision to stay for their senior year, whether that be Travion Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Denzel Burke, you name it. All those guys decided to stay for another year for a shot, to beat Michigan, to win the Big Ten, to compete for a national championship. You bring all those guys back, and then you add guys like Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins. I think if he can't, accomplish at least, a couple of those goals with this roster, then there are going to be questions about whether he has what it takes to get Ohio State to that mountaintop of college football.
Dan, what are the biggest questions surrounding Will Howard at the moment for Buckeyes media folks and Buckeyes fans?
Well, I think the good news is he's looked a lot better in preseason camp than he did in the spring. I think the spring was fairly rough for Will. I think, he struggled with his accuracy for a lot of the spring, didn't look fully comfortable out there. But in the practices we've been able to see here in August, he's looked a lot more comfortable. I think there's still that question of him as a deep passer. I think, that's an area where, he wasn't great at Kansas State. He hasn't looked great in these off-season practices. And so I think the biggest question really is, you've got Jeremiah Smith, you've got Emeka Egbuka, you've got Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, you've got these really talented receivers. Those guys are going to get open. Like those guys are going to have their chances to make big plays. Is he going to be able to make those throws down the field to take advantage of that and hit those big plays? I think there's been promising signs based on what we've seen so far here in August, but I think that's still a question mark of whether he can, consistently deliver those accurate deep balls to make, those big plays in the passing game.
So if he ends up being not a mess, but it just doesn't work out, what's the quarterback depth chart like? Because they always have plenty of people in that room.
Well, that's the good news is they have 5 quarterbacks on scholarship. So they're not hurting for depth there one bit. They have Devin Brown, he was a highly touted recruit himself, entering his 3rd year. He's had a pretty good off season. And so I think, they feel very good about having him as their likely number 2 quarterback. Julian Sayin has come in and had a really good first off season as a freshman. I think, he's the guy you really look at as the future of that quarterback room, likely next year being their starter after Will Howard. And so they've got a lot of talent in that room. None of those backups are, proven obviously, but I think, they feel good about the depth to where, that's an important thing with Will Howard because they don't want him to just be a passer. They want to use him as a running threat as well. And frankly, they were very hesitant to use their quarterbacks in the running game in recent years, particularly when they had C.J. Stroud, because they were just really worried about what would happen if their quarterback got injured. I think they feel a little more comfortable doing that this year because of how much depth they have.
They lost, what would you say, Dan, 3 guys that sting really last year?
Yeah, I mean, they've really, kept much of their core in place from last season. And, even you look at, some of those guys they lost, well, you lose a Josh Proctor at safety and you replace him with a Caleb Downs. You lose Marvin Harrison Jr. and yet people still think that might be the best receiving core in the country. And so I don't think there's a whole lot of guys that you look at and go, man, I wish this guy was still here, because I think they've done, such a good job this offseason of retooling that roster and filling their holes through the transfer portal.
The Buckeyes have always had some Texas flavor. J.K. Dobbins, J.T. Barrett, Garrett Wilson. Over the years, there's always been at least a couple guys. They got a couple Texas players on the roster. The freshman running back in James Peoples, but I know that's a crowded room. So my question is, what's the return on seeing a little bit of Calvin Simpson-Hunt last year? Just a handful of appearances. What's the thoughts on him heading into his sophomore season?
Yeah, I think he's looked good in preseason camp. We've seen him have some good practices out there. Now, he's still going to be a backup this year because Denzel Burke is back, Davison Igbinosun's back, Jordan Hancock's back, Jermaine Matthews Jr. is another guy in his class that looks really, really good. And so, I think because of that, you're looking at him being the 5th or 6th corner on the depth chart. So I don't expect him to be a guy that's going to play a lot of snaps this year, at least in terms of when the game's on the line. But certainly a guy that I think they're, optimistic about what he can be in the future as somebody who could be competing for a starting job a year from now.
Dan, how much does Kelly how does that help at least alleviate some of the stress being the head coach at Ohio State that's going to come with it, like being the president in some ways, but with Kelly there, Chip Kelly there to help offset some things?
Yeah, I think it allows Ryan Day to really focus more on just being the head coach, on just running the program, on managing the game as a head coach, rather than needing to also call every play on Saturdays. I think, it can really help when you get into those big games, whether it be against Michigan or Oregon or Penn State, that he can focus on really managing the game rather than, what are we going to run here on 2nd and 10? And so I think, that's where it can really help is, now he has an offensive coordinator who he fully trusts to run the offense, to lead the offensive game planning. He's, of course, still going to have a voice in there. He's, of course, still working plenty with the quarterbacks because of his expertise in that area. But I think this is the first time that he really feels like, okay, I can take a step back. I don't need to be in that offensive meeting room all day, every day. I can trust Chip and my assistant to lead the way on that side of the ball, which allows him to be a true CEO of the program.
Dan, if I were to sit in a local cafe, a greasy spoon near the university and say this sentence, how long would I be alive afterwards? I don't know what you guys are mad about. So what about Connor Stallions? Michigan's national championship is totally legitimate, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Oh yeah, you'd probably get booed out of a restaurant. That's not something people like to hear here in Columbus. Is certainly the perception here in Columbus is that national championship is tainted. But, you know, at the end of the day, you got to go beat them on the field. And that's what Ohio State has not done the last 3 years. And so if Ohio State fans want to shut Michigan fans up, if they don't want to keep hearing about the success Michigan has had for the last 3 years, then the Buckeyes got to go win that game on November 30th.
How do you feel like the impact of the four schools with Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, with Oregon obviously loaded up, USC kind of not sure, but they Lincoln Riley, Washington lost a ton, and UCLA seems to be in a transition year. How much impact does that have on the conference this year?
I think particularly with Oregon, it can have a massive impact because I think Oregon is right up there with Ohio State as being, you know, one of the two favorites to win the conference this year. And so I think Oregon is going to come in and be an immediate contender. I think that Ohio State-Oregon game in the middle of a regular season could be a Big Ten championship game preview. And so I think, you know, I think Oregon is a college football playoff team this year. They're a top 5 team for a reason. And I view them as the biggest threat to Ohio State to win the Big Ten championship this year.
Dan, thank you very much. Appreciate what you do. The coverage, 11 Warriors. Spell it out, 11warriors.com. Dan Hope. And on Twitter, I think it's at 11W. The numbers, 11W. And as I mentioned, at Dan_Hope. Ohio State ranked number 2. And Oregon at number 3 inside the top 25 preseason poll. And when I saw that, and Eli Letterman of ESPN is next, when I looked at the top 25 poll, and we've discussed this, I saw Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama. Because we discussed it for so long, I saw the SEC when I saw the Texas logo. I never once considered Oregon initially as a Big Ten. And I think I did with somebody, just for some reason, that kind of is something I'm going to get used to. But I look at the individual schools more than there's this turf war for how many is this and how many that when it comes to the conferences, and I get it because of all the changes that we've seen in the last few years. When we come back, Eli Letterman, ESPN, he's written a story about Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, his thoughts about the poll and more, even maybe a dark horse or two, and this is 365 Sports.
Dr. Kent Petty and PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Dr. Petty has special interest in testosterone replacement therapy for low T and currently offering immediate same-day access for lab screening to help identify those men in need. Some of the symptoms of low T: fatigue, loss of energy, poor sexual performance, ED, loss of even sexual decreased muscle mass and strength, weight gain, excess body fat, depression, moodiness, poor sleep, insomnia, poor mental focus. Go to PettyClinicLowT.com, click on the email and or phone number, and get in touch with them and tell them I sent you. Dr. Petty will then set you up to get your blood work, get the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Academy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Busch Light, the sound of refreshment, the coldest and smoothest light lager there is. Find Busch Light near you.
Eli Letterman, ESPN.com with us on 365 Sports. Eli with Greg Smoke, Paul Catalina, David Smoke. Eli, thanks for your time. We just had Ralph Russo, Associated Press, on. We're going to focus in on Ohio State, Georgia, with those who cover them, including in the recent segment, Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. Anything in particular? It seemed like it. I saw the top 25 image, and I went, okay, and nothing that, jumped out at me. Anything with you?
No, I mean, I feel like this poll, and thank you guys for having me on again. I think the preseason poll is always kind of goes chalk on how we think it is. There's a lot of conventional thinking across the country. I say this as a writer who does not vote in the AP poll, but, you're getting the perspective of a bunch of writers across the country, and we really haven't seen these teams yet. So it's less for me about, surprises today, but, looking around Ole Miss, I think this is their best, preseason poll ranking since the 70s. I think they're going to be a team to watch this year. Missouri, certainly, kind of one of those hot, picks beyond the SEC elite that people are excited about. Looking throughout the Big 12, obviously got Oklahoma State 17, Utah 12. To me, K-State is kind of that dark horse this year. So I look at this less as, where were the surprises? Even Kansas being 22, I think, speaks to the depth of the Big 12. But more to, where people have these teams and where we think they're going to be by the end of the year.
Eli, is there a team that you think is being slept on within the 25 ranking?
I think, Tennessee's a school that if they pull the things they've got to pull together, and those are some big ones, that, does Nico Imaleva look like, the kid everyone thinks he is? Early on enough, they're going to get that early test with NC State. I can see them, getting into this conversation. I mentioned Kansas State. I'm really high on them this year. I just think there's a lot of opportunity in the Big 12, especially in this expanded playoff, and they'd be someone I'm curious. But at the same time, you put that question around, does Michigan, they're still bringing back plenty of talent, but they lost so much. They've got so much upheaval, all that stuff going on with the NCAA. Do they, say they're ninth right now? Are they going to be a playoff team or even a playoff contender come November? Florida State having to bring back plenty of talent and build on last year, but a new quarterback there. I think, both sides, there's some dark horses here, but also some teams you look at in this AP poll out today and that we might look back on in November and see, they're in a far different place.
Eli, with the preseason top 25, what quickly followed was a look at here's how the playoff would look if this is how it would finish. And I was just curious of where you stand on the expanded playoff. I mean, it's impossible to not embrace it now that it's here, but were you somebody that was for or against the idea of a 12-team playoff?
I'm all for it. I mean, I think, yes, like that probably the chief argument against, right, is maybe cheapening certain games. You no longer have the do or die nature of, you lose 2 games before November and your championship aspirations are done for. But flip that around, now way more teams are going to have, things to play for in November. Again, talking about a school like Missouri, a school like Utah, I think now that the door is open for really any program to dream, and that's what it's all about, right? So I think the fact that you're going to have more teams playing more meaningful games in October, November, teams getting to host on-campus games in the postseason, I think is going to be a blast. So I'm, on the whole, all for it, and I think whatever is perhaps lost by making this pool a bit bigger is going to be made up for, and just how fun this thing's going to be once we get to it.
You wrote about Marcus Freeman and the impact he's had on Notre Dame, that even though they've been good, at times there was some disappointment when it comes to recruiting and who they were getting. How much of an impact has he made, in your opinion?
Well, I think, for one, with Marcus Freeman in general, he's changed what they're doing there. It's worth pointing out at the start of this. We're not talking about a small directional school somewhere. We're talking about Notre Dame, one of the biggest brands and powers in college football. But the fact is, and we've seen this when they've got to the biggest stages, you think back to national title games or playoff games, they're a step behind, the SEC elite, the biggest programs in the country. And he's taken steps, and it's shown in the recruiting, but really it's shown in what they're doing behind the scenes to revolutionize what they're doing in recruiting. And I think, as we talk about a 12-team playoff, Notre Dame has a good path to get there. No longer are they going to be handcuffed by not having a conference title game. They have pathways to be there. And if they're recruiting better and they're getting to that postseason format more often, surely, they're going to be better positioned to at least compete when they get into those games with the very best programs across the country. And so that was kind of the thrust of the story, is that, they've made really big changes. They've really committed to recruiting probably in ways they hadn't in years past. And all of that is in the backdrop of the fact that, Notre Dame, has academic limitations. There's things about Notre Dame that make it different than recruiting than just about any other school in the country. And Marcus Freeman has really embraced that and found ways to evolve what they're doing.
I was kind of surprised. I know, the limitations, yes, but the passion from the fan base is nearly global when it comes to college football and Notre Dame. And I was kind of surprised to find out that they had, maybe kind of gone a more traditional route when it came to NIL and all those other things right at first as well. How much of those things changed in the last year or so?
Yeah, well, for one, as far as Marcus Freeman, just think about the profile. I mean, he's young, he's dynamic, he connects with people. So he found a way to sort of bring a young energy to a program that, just historically has this, is probably one of the most traditional and, let's say, lower seed conservative, football programs in the country. It's Notre Dame football. It's Rudy. It's all that. And so he's brought a different energy to it. And, as far as recruiting goes historically, and this still hasn't changed a whole lot, you've got to go get kids who can play at Notre Dame. And that sounds, silly in a sense, and they still recruit so well. But the pool of elite college football players, at least as they feel at Notre Dame, who are, in the mold to play at Notre Dame, to go to class every day, to be a part of the entire thing that makes Notre Dame, which, again, on that campus, they feel is different than just about anywhere in the country, is different. They don't feel like they can go for the same kids that Alabama and Georgia and even Ohio State and Michigan go for and have the same success. So their pool is more limited. It's why they focus on the kids they feel like that are elite but also fit. But as Marcus Freeman has shown in the last couple of years, he's maybe been a bit more willing to go outside of those traditional private Catholic school footprints and recruit from other places. And I think that's another place where he's pushing the limits a bit. And I think in the next few years, at least in his vision, they're going to be, pushing on some of those barriers they've hit in the past.
What sense of excitement do you get from the Irish about Riley Leonard and what he can possibly do this year?
I've heard really good things so far. I think they're excited about him, and we know, it all starts at quarterback just about everywhere, but that's a place where Sam Hartman burned bright early last year, but maybe didn't quite have it. I think there's excitement about him, excitement around the talent around him. But I can say in the early weeks of camp, which is when you just start hearing things trickling out about who looks good, often about who doesn't look good. Heard stuff out of Iowa yesterday with that scrimmage. Everyone glommed down to that, but really positive things about Riley Leonard. And I think they feel good about a relatively light schedule this year, just the way things are breaking, and the fact that this 12-team playoff really does open things up for them.
So, Eli, you're now at ESPN. You also are recovering quite a bit of the recruiting. I saw where today Georgia Tech received a commitment from a 5-star offensive lineman, I believe, and maybe an offensive or defensive lineman in Petty. And then also Oregon just picked up a massive commitment from Cody Green, an offensive tackle. But Georgia Tech and Brent Key, how much of a wow was that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly this was trending that way with Josh Petty, so it wasn't a big surprise today. But gosh, consider, the idea of Georgia Tech going out and beating Ohio State and Florida State and Tennessee for some of the biggest guys in the country, right? That's not a story you see every day. And I think some of that is certainly a testament to Brent Key. It helps that Josh Petty is from, 20 miles away in Georgia from Georgia Tech. But certainly this is probably an insight into the way that NIL and what some of these programs in some, talent-rich areas, but also, some area. Georgia Tech is well placed. Everyone's been saying this since NIL rolled around. They'd be well placed if we get it organized to make some strides through NIL. And I think this is a good example of that. And you see the class that Brent Key has going there is probably on pace right now. If they hold on to these guys and maybe add a bit more, going to be a historic class for the Yellow Jackets. And this is clearly the cornerstone piece of that with what they did today.
Thanks for the time, Eli. Appreciate it. We have games. We have the poll now, coaches poll, USA Today, and now the AP poll. We have games coming up around the corner. We've had all this realignment. There's still speculation. How much will it be for you, even though you do a lot of recruiting coverage, that's constant, just to have meat on the bone and actual evidence of stats and games?
Oh, it's the best. I mean, you're right. My role is different now. Previously, when I was covering Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, I'd be gearing up for, 14 games over the next few months and a full season with the team. But now I'll be covering recruiting. I'll still be doing plenty of general college football coverage too. And my proximity, I'm in Oklahoma City, so Stillwater and the Norman are going to be well used. And it just gets more fun for all of us once games are going. And I do think in this era where commitments are less firm than ever and NIL is more present than ever, the recruiting world is going to stay very active this fall. So I think there will be plenty of good stuff to follow.
Eli, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again. Eli Letterman with us, as he was talking about. He was covering Oklahoma and Oklahoma State for a while, but now with ESPN, a little bit of both, the games, the college football coverage, but also quite a bit when it comes to recruiting too, with a couple of offensive linemen. I said 5-star, 4-star Petty committed to Georgia Tech. That's a pretty nice get for Brent Key.
Yeah.
Around the corner, we will hear at 4:45 today from Graham Coffey. He covers Georgia. They were ranked number 1 in the AP poll. And then also between now and then, some notes on college football that we haven't talked about. We've looked at the top 25. We've looked at trends. Much more with that. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, make this the summer event in Waco. Drive home in the 2024 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab. Massive $15,000 off MSRP. Plus, experience the massive selection. And I'm talking about luxury of a Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. We drove one of those in Vegas during the Big 12 Media Days. Phenomenal, with the rental car setting us up with that. Exceptional discounts available. And then also get behind the wheel of a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000, or take advantage of 0% financing. How about getting the $13,000 off a new 2023 Dodge Challenger or Chargers RT? Save $8,000 on the final edition Scat Pat Challengers and Chargers. All of that. Alan Samuels. Ted Teague sent me pictures of his trip to Europe, playing golf at St. Andrews and having a lot of great fun. I think it was St. Andrews. It might have been another one of the higher courses, Turnberry or something like that, but he had a great time. Glad he's back after a great vacation overseas. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat Loop, 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas. Also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up, or should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
365 Sports at 4:45. We'll hear from Graham Coffey, Phil Bennett at just after 5. Paul Catalina's top 5 in about an hour and 15 or 20 minutes. Craig Smoke is back, the Dragon. Clinton Moses, I believe, was in there in the chat room with the emojis of the dragon and heat, flames, etc. Seriously, welcome back. You have a good time? We mentioned a little bit at the start of the show, but anything in particular you just, I know you enough where you just like to kind of just chill and get away.
It's good to be back. Really, really looking forward to talking about games and actual results here in the next couple of weeks. Very excited about that. But as I said at the beginning, I just did a lot of little stuff and no big trip to, Cancun or L.A. or, something crazy like that. I wanted some rest as much as anything else and just a little bit of a break from all of the noise. And I was able to get that. So feels weird being back, honestly, after that much time away, and probably going to take a couple of days to readjust to just getting back into the swing of things. But, glad to be back, and thanks for anybody that noticed,
All right, Paul, you kind of brought this up. We have, all of us, the group of 5, nobody in the top 25 preseason poll for the AP. But how would you rank your top 3?
My top 3 group of 5s.
Among these schools.
Okay.
And you could have somebody that's not a part of this, but the ones who are receiving votes, Boise State, SMU, UTSA, Tulane.
You missed one. You got one wrong already.
I did. I got SMU again. That's going to take me some time. Damn it. Boise State, Memphis, Liberty, UTSA, Tulane, and Appalachian State.
I would put them Memphis, Boise State, and UTSA right now.
Craig?
I don't know enough about these teams, so I'll just go off in Boise State, Memphis, and I guess UTSA.
Well, you're not going to be graded on this. It's just a discussion.
No, I know. It's not a very well thought. It's just I'm throwing complete blanks here because I haven't given it any thought or consideration. So I know I'm not being graded on it, but I'm also somebody who likes to know what I'm talking about. So when I don't, I just want to make it clear that I really don't know here.
Vacation too. Like, you gotta, he didn't do any homework while he's on vacation, which is what you're not.
I don't know why you get bothered that I just say that I don't really know. I mean, I'm not pretending that I don't
know either, but it's just a discussion. I mean, it's like if we were sitting around just relaxed and discuss. And for me, it would be Memphis, Boise State, and UTSA.
Here's why I think I might be a little more comfortable in my opinions. The top 5 helps me out tremendously because I have to come up with these things every day, and then I have to really back them up because if I say something stupid, it's amplified by the fact that it's on video and it's just living on YouTube. And so I want to make sure that I looked it up. So I think when you look at schedules, when you think about returning talent, guys that could be very well playing in the Power 5, how deep rosters are, coaching, UTSA has that, Boise State has that, App State has it even though I didn't do it. And I think Memphis is really getting underrated here. They've got a 4-year starting quarterback in Seth Hennigan who's really, really good. Mm-hmm. They don't have to play teams like SMU. Like they've lost some of the other thing that people have not kind of counted for in this is because of realignment, some of the tougher teams that you would even come around to be playing on your schedule, you're not playing anymore. So
that's
for a
what
school
Ralph Russo brought that up.
Yeah,
though.
Exactly. So for a and I think with voters, they haven't quite noticed that. With Memphis, they don't have to play SMU. They don't have to play Houston. They don't have to play some of these teams that went to the UCF and Cincinnati. Those are out of their – they're gone. They don't have to worry about it anymore. And so now – SMU is probably the best team that left. Yeah, you still have to worry about Tulane and UTSA and other schools like that are all going to be good. But the bottom line is I'll take their schedule now with the roster that they have, given the fact that especially SMU has gone out the door for them to have a really good season.
All right, Kalen DeBoer with Jalen Milroe. How much of an impact can he have in a short amount of time? Although – a short amount of time is going to be 9 months before they play their first game.
Well, I think it's going to be good. And the reason I think it's going to be different, the one thing that I would say that Kalen DeBoer does that Nick Saban either never felt he had to do or just it wasn't in his nature is Nick Saban didn't play as fast and loose as Kalen DeBoer does. I mean, you watched Washington last year. You saw it. I mean, 4th down was just kind of not a thing to him. I mean, he was going to take chances. Nick Saban, more traditional in that regard. Now, it never hurt him. I mean, the guy won 150,000 national championships and was the best coach of all time. But for offense and for a player like Jalen Milroe, I think it's going to make it interesting that Kalen DeBoer is going to be like, well, I've got this unbelievable Superman at quarterback that can run and throw the ball really deep. What the hell? Let's go do it.
Yeah, I think just having another set of eyes on him and somebody well-versed in, playing with some pretty terrific players and quarterbacks and knowing how to manage those guys, I think is something Kalen DeBoer has shown that he is pretty good at. And I think, you got to be excited if you're Milroe looking at what Michael Penix was able to do last year in particular, just on his way out and the run that Washington had. There's a lot of reasons to believe that he can take a huge step forward and they can have a very exciting offense with all of the weapons at his disposal. So I've seen a couple articles where his decision-making has been talked about quite a bit. I think as much as DeBoer can help, just Jalen Milroe being a year older and being more experienced is going to help. So you combine those two things, and there's plenty of news and notes and reasons to believe that, Jalen Milroe is a guy to keep an eye on, not just because he's a quarterback at Alabama, but because he might take a pretty significant step forward this year. And he's got some God-given talent, obviously, that's shown through even in some pretty tough times last year. And he handled himself really well through some really tough times last year. So I think just more seasoning, being through the fire last year, and then, having this new fresh set of coaching that's very quarterback friendly is all reasons to believe that Jalen Milroe could have a huge year.
How much did the touchdown against Auburn give him confidence going forward? Yes, they still lost the playoff game to Michigan, but remember, that play that could have gone either way. There was a missed block or a missed assignment or a missed call, and they might be playing in the championship game.
I think that anytime you have something like that, it makes you feel like everything's going to be all right. For the first time, maybe – and they played well. After the Texas game, Alabama went on that stretch. They only lost 2 Texas and Washington last year. So Texas and Michigan, I'm sorry. But Jalen Milroe, in those moments, like every time you do something like that, it makes you more confident that you can do it. And so he'd build up to that point. And now going forward, I think leadership-wise and, whatever kind of 8-ball they find themselves behind, because of that individual play, he's always going to have that in the back of mind. Okay, I've done this before. But maybe the moment is not as big for him.
I think if anything, it just puts him into legendary territory regardless of what happens the rest of his career at Alabama. He's got a moment that's always going to be there in the highlight reels, and something that Alabama fans look back on for years and decades to come. Just on the general surface of things, he's cemented himself in Alabama lore, but certainly he wants to do a lot more than that and put himself in a lot more stories that people are retelling down the line beyond just that one play or that one result. So, I think that had to have given him a lot of confidence and just belief in sometimes just, doing your thing and letting her rip. Good things can happen, and trusting yourself and trusting your decision-making. And, I think that he's a guy with a lot of natural skills, and another thing that DeBoer's mentioned about him is just he knows that he's not good enough yet, or he knows that he can be better, I guess I should say. And so you're the quarterback at Alabama. There's huge expectations on you right away. But he was a young guy last year, and I think, again, seasoning is going to go a long way. Making a play like that, building your confidence goes a long way. So, he's a very intriguing guy. How much better he can be is a huge question, obviously, but I'm very excited to see how much better he is just after this last offseason.
Grayson McCall at NC State, ranked inside the top 25, a team that always seems to be pretty good. They're in that 9-4 type mode. Your thoughts about Grayson McCall helping out NC State?
They probably still are in that mode, but if they wind up 10-3, and if they wind up in the championship game, I wouldn't be totally shocked about NC State. Dave Doran is a remarkably consistent coach throughout his career, no matter where he's been. And Grayson McCall's been a fun quarterback at Coastal. Now he steps up into the Power 4 conferences. I think he'll do really well on that offense. I think that they can have some fun with him, and I think that this is a team that has some stability, at least for a year at quarterback, that they haven't had in a long time. Devin Leary was there and he got hurt, and it kind of derailed the end of a season that could have been pretty good. And then he went on to Kentucky and was kind of not quite as much as people thought he would be in the SEC. They really kind of went through a couple guys last year. Now Grayson McCall comes in there with a ton of skins on the wall when it comes to winning games, and I think can really help them be consistent. If he stays healthy, then that's really kind of been their problem, because defensively you're going to get a tooth and knuckle brawl every time you're in there.
Tooth and knuckle?
Here, I think bare knuckle, tooth and I don't know.
Is somebody going to bite somebody in the side of the neck?
Yeah, punch somebody in the tooth ends up in your knuckles.
Yeah. There we go.
That was something I would normally do.
Yeah, I know. That scares me.
A normal saying that I would actually come up with. Kyle Visser was in the chat room saying, Craig, we know you want to break down realignment. And then, of course, response, he does not want realignment discussion. Tired of it. And guess what? So am I. And so is Paul, and probably 95% of you in the chat room.
It's not something I'm begging to talk about. It's something that didn't change at all while I was gone. I kept track of just kind of the comings and goings of just the news headlines, and I still see there's all the same reasons there was when I left to speculate. There's all the same reasons of why a lot of it's just a bunch of bull crap coming from certain circles that just
ambulance chasers.
It's amazing how like you just hear, you don't hear any other news of any sort, but you got realignment sources all over the place. Like I don't buy that. I don't buy some of that stuff. I feel like every time it gets quiet, like you can almost predict like here comes a tweet from somebody, and sure enough, like within 24 hours, like I just heard that. And it's like, yeah, of course, because it started getting too quiet. So I appreciate the conversation. I'm not dying for it. I'm only dying for it when there's actually a reason to be talking about it. And I know that while I was gone, there was like little things here and there. I know there's the mediation thing, which is like we've talked about it already. And so, you know, it is what it is. It's in the hands of the courts. And all the rest of it is all waiting and hinging on that. And that's just sort of where I am with it. But I will say, like I always say, I get the fun and the speculation. I don't appreciate the kind of the stuff I was talking about where it's like you're just trying to like get your Twitter going, and I don't believe.
Well, I am going to call them from now on, and there's some that aren't a part of this, but they are college football realignment ambulance chasers.
Yeah, I called them realignment pornographers.
Okay.
And that wasn't my term either. Somebody told me, and I was like, that's actually what it is. And Craig, I sent a couple to the group chat while you were gone, and I think it's artistic in how ornate they're getting.
Oh, yeah.
With like, this is going to happen, and then when this happens, it's like all these, chess moves they're trying to make down the board, and you're like, man, this next one could be really cataclysmic, or it could be like two schools that want to leave.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say really any scenario right now. I mean, but it's just you can almost predict it when it starts getting a little quiet of like, here comes somebody with the latest big were we not supposed to be welcoming Florida State into the Big 12 already based on the way some of it was being presented like a month ago? And so, it's fun. It's fun during the offseason especially. It's been a very loud last month that actually turned into absolutely nothing whatsoever. And so, again, it all goes back to the court cases with Florida State and the ACC and whatever happens there. But, I'm more than happy to talk about it, especially when there's real meat on the bone. But I'm just not somebody who, like, day after day gets enjoyment at this point anymore. Like, it was one thing with the Pac because you knew, like, the dam was going to break at any point. And then when it did, like, and you knew it was going to have to, it was either going to maintain itself or it was going to break. This, too, has that. But the only thing is there's no expiration date. Like, the expiration date could be a couple years from now. And so I just don't have a desire to speculate all the time on the Florida State result, not knowing if that is 6 days from now or if that's 2 years from now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But when there's reasons to talk about it, like the mediation or, there's something that's obviously like a real nugget and not just like I heard from my connect in Scranton, level of intel, then I think when there's more than that to it, then it's fun to talk about. But I haven't seen a lot but that really over the last couple of weeks.
Garrett, I just sent you an email. If you could get it up before the break. I agree with you on everything you just said. And it's like, it almost can wear you down. But I love pornography, realignment pornography.
Save that bite.
Yeah. Realignment ambulance chasers. And that means the people who are doing this, and now some of them are fighting amongst themselves, by the way.
Oh, it's fighting. This always happens.
Yeah, which, it's almost like, no, this is my and this is my topic. And it's just crazy how much is gone. But that's okay. If somebody wants their life is compared to how many views or clicks or followers they have, good for them.
Yeah, I now I'm looking at it as the only thing that annoys me anymore is that because these people exist, we have to answer the question, and we answer the question with, look, man, how much stuff has this guy gotten right? And then you're like, well, he was right on this thing. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if I ask out one girl a day for 365 days, if one of them says yes and the other 164 say no, I'm not Wilt Chamberlain. I'm just 1 for 365.
Yeah, but you got the one answer.
I got the one answer.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot of there's no consequences. Although that's part of what is going on now with a lot of the consequences because they're throwing stuff against the wall. Look who's at practice. Parker Rem. had this picture today. You know who that is?
Gary Patterson.
Gary Patterson at Baylor football practice this afternoon. Phil Bennett will join us a little bit after 5. He talks to Gary and was going to ask him, of course, about the fact that they broke up. And we'll ask him that. I just sent him a text.
When you said Parker at Baylor practice, I was thinking the more important Parker that was at Baylor practice on Saturday. Garrett's Parker.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, Gary, you want to tell everybody about that? That was awesome that Baylor allowed Parker and you to be a part of their workout. This is during like a time when otherwise it's closed down.
No, it really was. I mean, it was an opportunity where every time we drive by, Parker's always yelling at the stadium, and he's wanting to see it. So when we met with the coaching staff, I asked about bringing him out, and Brent Ingram, the head SID, and Dave Arando cleared it. So I appreciate them having us out. They gave us a tour of the locker room and hooked Parker up with some Gatorades for the team and everything. But no, we had a blast sitting out there and watching them. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I greatly appreciate everybody for having us out, and I look forward to it again. All right, that was awesome. He talked about it all the rest of the night. The whole day. I remember when he got the hat from the media mixer from a couple of weeks ago.
Garrett sent a picture of him watching practice, and he was locked in, dude. Yeah. Locked in. Like, if you just hand him a notepad, he'd have been like, all right, I'm going to give this to Dave.
All right, around the corner.
Here's things I want to see him work on.
Graham Coffey on Georgia. I like to, at times when there's a question in the chat room, and I'm pretty sure we've done this. The iPad, Chase Smoke. When are you going to show the number 12 and 13th ranked Utah helmet? Are they not a part of the montage that we do all the time?
Literally to the left of the screen right now that you're on.
Yeah. This is what happens when somebody has it in their head. But you're right next to the left of the Oklahoma State
they're
helmet.
right there.
Right there.
They have a cool visor on it, too. Thanks to Green Gridiron.
Like right here. Utah. As far as the collage that Garrett puts up when we're talking about a conference or whatever, every helmet in every conference, if there's somebody that's discussing a certain conference, we have that up. In fact, Garrett, you and I traded a couple of emails about that earlier in the day.
I am going to put our link in there from Green Gridiron for anybody who wants to get a helmet of their favorite team. So go on there and go. And you get a big one or a small one. You can get a custom thing done. So go there, click on it, and buy your own Utah helmet.
Yep, there you go. All right, so good. Thank you. That's right. I love that black one, too. I like the uniforms when they're wearing that black, but their red is also very, very nice. I love red. It's my favorite color. When we come back, Graham Coffey, no doubt, I don't think any surprise whatsoever. Georgia ranked number 1 in the AP Top 25 preseason poll. I wouldn't have been shocked had it been Ohio State, who we also had an analyst on, but they're number 1. That's next. Graham Coffey. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. I got an alert yesterday in my email inbox from TexasBeefHouse.com from USPS that I've got a package coming to me. 15 pounds of product from TexasBeefHouse.com. Last week during their live auction that went for 2 days, I put in a bid and I won the high bid. And it wasn't much higher than it was at the beginning, but I was able to I think somebody made a run at it. It's bid per pound. If you go into a grocery store and you want to buy ribeyes or New York strips, sirloin, what product? It might be a box of crackers. You don't go to the front when you go check out and start negotiating the price. That's the price. There's the barcode. That's what you're going to pay. At TexasBeefHouse.com during their online auctions, you now get to make the price. You get to dictate how much you want to spend for those steaks or that beef or that hamburger, whatever it is, sausage and more, brisket, tri-tip. That's what they do when they have their online auctions. They have another one coming up at the end of August that will be a bunch of steaks available. These were special sirloin, Wagyu, and I won the bid. And I've got a box coming to me. I bought 10 pounds, and there's 5 pounds of some other great product coming with that. If you won last week, that box, that product is being sent to you in the 48 contiguous states. And by the way, there's another live auction coming around the corner at the end of the month. I'll tell you more about that, and so will Samantha Duvall. TexasBeefHouse.com. I got a package coming to me, and I can't wait to eat the product. Wagyu. And also, of course, if you want, knowing where they come from, right there outside of Tyler and White House at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, zero sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Graham Coffee, Dog Central joins us. 365 Sports. The AP preseason poll is out. The coaches poll is out. And no surprise where Georgia is ranked. The expectations are huge. They're massive. There's a reason for that. Back-to-back national titles. And last year then, the last, just a heartbreaking loss in the SEC championship to Alabama. Graham, they're number 1. There's no surprise there. Would it have been shocking had they not been, in your opinion?
I don't think it would have been shocking. I think you can make an argument that Ohio State, deserves to have consideration for that spot. I think I saw a publication, put 7 Ohio State players in the first and second team All-American list. So, yeah, I think Georgia might have a little more depth than anybody else and a little more proven depth. But you could hear an argument for the upside of some of these other contenders.
Graham, if I think I ranked, like, in my personal top 25, I ranked them number 2 just because I think Ohio State's got more questions answered on offense than Georgia does at this point, but I might be splitting hairs. But one of those questions is, okay, Ra Thomas gone. They've got to replace Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, and they did well without them when those guys were injured last year. But who are the guys that are going to take them back to that level of being number 1 in the country at those particular positions?
Yeah, I think that for Georgia, there is no replacing a Brock Bowers, right? Like, you get Oscar Delp back, who was another, 5-star type of tight end recruit and played a lot last year, played well when Bowers was out. He's going to catch the football when you throw it to him, and he'll work underneath and do things that normal tight ends do. You're not going to have a guy who you flip the ball out to in the flat that weighs 230 pounds and plays tight end and also, goes and gets 10 yards after the catch every time he touches the football. That's just not going to be part of the offense this year, in my opinion. You look at the receiver position, they brought in Colby Young from Miami, and, I think that add was extremely important now with Thomas gone from the team, because Young is another true X receiver body type. He's 6'4", 220. He runs a 4.5. He does all those good things, and was dominant at times for them this spring, and has been very good through fall camp. So I think that's a name to watch for them. You've got Dominic Lovett Dak, who was the leading receiver, for Missouri back in 2022. Came to Georgia last year, led the team in receptions. I think he'll be more of a first and second option this year, when he was kind of a second, third option with Bowers and McConkey on the field. But yeah, the behind him, like, there's guys like Dylan Bell who have had nice games before where they've gone out and scored a couple touchdowns. There's well-recruited players. There's speedy guys like Anthony Evans, but you haven't seen them really do it on a consistent basis before. So I think your analysis there is certainly a fair question to ask about Georgia in terms of who's going to step up and how quickly will they do that with that road game at Alabama lingering at the end of September.
Graham, let me ask you this. What is the one position that could be, if there is a weakness with Georgia, what is it?
I think the question for me is still the interior of that defensive line. Mm-hmm. I think they've got the edge rushers. The back seven is going to be really, really talented again. There will be NFL players all over in that regard, but they struggled at defensive tackle last year. You saw in that Alabama game, they really struggled to get pressure with 4. And there were some times, especially late, where Alabama was kind of able to lean on them and run the ball up the middle between the tackles. They bring back Nazir Stackhouse, who was really good next to Jalen Carter in 2022, but kind of took a step back in 23. And there's a lot of well-recruited talent. It's Georgia, right? Like there's 5 stars and all of those good things, but none of those guys really proved themselves to be a 4-down player or a 3-down player last year, I should say. And they didn't really have a true kind of nose tackle presence. They've got a couple freshmen who are now becoming sophomores that have that kind of 330, 350-pound body to maybe plug the middle. But, again, we haven't seen them do it before. I think they need someone in the interior that can get some push and force some double teams at times to sort of open up pass rush lanes and two-gap run stopping for everyone else on that defensive line.
Graham, from a Georgia and also just Graham Coffey, the Georgia college football fan media guy perspective, of these 4, what do you think is the biggest deal for the Dogs? The expanded playoff, no divisions, no Nick Saban, or the addition of Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC?
It's got to be no Nick Saban, right? You look across the rest of the conference, there's not anyone else in the SEC who is at their current job that has beaten Kirby Smart at the school they're at right now. Hugh Freeze did it at Ole Miss back in 2016, but he's at Auburn now. So that's it. I mean, they haven't lost a game to somebody not named Alabama in almost 4 years, since November of 2020 to Florida and Dan Mullen in Jacksonville during the COVID season. So I think Georgia and Alabama, those staffs knew each other so well that there were times that I think they kind of, almost overcoached things and maybe over-schemed things and tried to change something that was working all year long. You saw that in 2021 in the SEC title. You saw that with some of the defensive packages last year in the SEC title. I think Nick Saban being gone is just a big sort of psychological hurdle in a lot of ways for Georgia.
Who has higher expectations, in your opinion, this year? Georgia, Ohio State, or Texas?
I think it's Ohio State. I think when you spend the amount of money that they spent in the transfer portal to create the roster that they've created, that you have to cash that in. Sarkisian has brought a sense of order to Texas, in my opinion, that hasn't really been there since before the kind of end of the Mac Brown era. And everyone seems aligned behind him. So I think that they're kind of here to make this push in the SEC, and he'll get a year or two more after this, even if this doesn't go the way they hope, to kind of figure it out and adjust and keep recruiting to what they need in this conference. But with Ryan Day, it's like he's been close, and you can only sign top 3 classes for so long before you start to get a label of this guy. It's not a talent problem, it's a coaching problem. And I think this is the year for Ohio State to Like if they don't make the national title game, then I think that it's a failure for them, truthfully. I could see them losing to Georgia and that being okay, maybe in the final game or something like that. But you can't continue to get people to invest the amount that Ohio State fans invest, both financially and emotionally, to come up short. You got to start winning championships, and it's been 10 years since they've won one.
Graham, in the SEC, who is the scariest, outside of Texas, obviously, because they were in the playoff last year, outside of Texas, who's the scariest threat to Georgia at the top?
I still think it's Alabama. I really do. I think what the possibilities are with Jalen Milroe and Kalen DeBoer's offense, with what we saw DeBoer do with the vertical pass game at Washington, and we know that's what Milroe is best at, is throwing the ball downfield. Like, there's a lot that could be unlocked there. And if he can sort of get Milroe in a spot where he's making quicker decisions on some shorter throws, then yeah, like that could unlock a whole lot. There's still 5 stars on the defensive line. There's, I have questions about their secondary. They basically returned 0 kind of returning production that was at Alabama last year, but maybe they go out and start winning some shootouts in kind of a DeBoer fashion that you saw at Washington, and that shifts things. But until Georgia beats Alabama, especially beats them in Tuscaloosa, I think you got to continue to sort of look at that as the biggest hurdle, because Texas isn't on the schedule right now.
Graham, I know with the expanded playoff, there's going to be the 4 byes, and more often than not, you think that Georgia would probably be in that category. And hard to imagine a scenario where them not making the playoff now for the foreseeable future would not be some disaster. But how cool do you think a game in Athens, a first-round playoff type game, how cool would that be?
It's hard to think of anything that would be much cooler, to be honest. Especially, you get a classic opponent like a USC or a Michigan or somebody like that coming to town. I think that place would be rocking. I think it would be a really, really special thing, and to do that in December with just sort of the football weather and all of that, it's something that I think we'll see probably, sometime in the next few years, and I hope we'll see. And in some ways, I do wonder if, like, maybe being, a third-place SEC team that doesn't have to go to Atlanta and beat yourself up against the first or second-place team, and then you get to just maybe host a home game as like an 8 seed or a 7 seed or something, and kind of slip into that picture. Like, that might not be a bad way to live for some of these teams, and it would certainly be good for the town and the school and for ticket sales to host one.
It's Graham Coffey, Dog Central with us on 365 Sports. Georgia ranked number 1 in both of the preseason polls, and of course a reason why and how good they've been. So there've been the outfield stuff. There's been the distractions and the driving infractions and all that, et cetera. How much of that is an everyday deal, or is it something that they are nipping in the bud and moving forward?
Well, I think it's hard to say they're nipping it in the bud when, it's been an ongoing issue since the tragic accident that happened in January of 2023, right? I think Athens is a different type of college town than a lot of places. And, I was in school there a long time ago now, but I was in school there, and, Athens police are certainly a little more present than some college town police. And, they certainly are around and posted up. And there are things that Georgia players have been arrested for, like turning the wrong way down a one-way street while, not being intoxicated and just being confused on a dark street downtown. That, like, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, that doesn't really move me. It doesn't bother me. It's an honest mistake that an 18-year-old made behind the wheel. There are other things like street racing charges that I look at and I say, if you're a member of the Georgia football program and you had, other members of that program that lost their lives in a racing accident, then, like, there's no excuse for you to go out there and do that stuff. I remember being 20 years old. I remember things happening to other people that were 20 years old and not believing those things could happen to me. So I have compassion for just the nature of youth and all of that. But at this point, I do think Georgia's got to find a better way to to motivate these guys into not doing this, because it continues to happen. And if it's going to continue to happen, then clearly, something is not getting through. I think Ra Thomas being dismissed from the program was a good thing. I think that was the right thing to do. I should say it wasn't a good thing because I hate it for the future of the kid and all of that. But it was the right decision by Kirby Smart. It's just kind of a question of, the next guy that gets arrested for a vehicle-related incident that involves a high rate of speed, like, are we going to start talking about missing a game? It's like, what's it going to take before the message gets through to everybody else that says, hey, I don't want to do that anymore.
Tell us something about Carson Beck that maybe those who don't or aren't around the Georgia program don't know about.
Yeah, I think Carson Beck is, he kind of gets this reputation as sort of a cool customer. He's kind of a quiet guy, and he's got the tattoos, and he's just sort of a little bit laid back and all that. But I think there's an intensity to him that a lot of people don't realize is there. I think you look at him last year, he really kind of came into his own as a quarterback for Georgia in his first road start with Georgia behind on the road in a really, really crazy environment at Jordan-Hare Stadium playing Auburn. So he's a guy that seems to meet the moment, and he has that composure that I think helps him in those moments. But he's, I believe, really kind of matured from a leadership standpoint this offseason. He's been more of an organizer than a doer, I guess you would say. And I think for him, people probably underappreciate a little bit just how good he was last year in terms of getting the ball out. Like his mental processing from a football standpoint is as impressive as any Georgia quarterback that I've covered. He sees things just incredibly quick, and he sees the field very quick, and that obviously is a huge help to the offensive line, and it avoids sacks and all those things. And I think that in some ways not having Bowers and McConkey that kind of become just sort of the focus, on almost every pass play, it may unlock him onto a sort of a new level of some sort. I just think that, not getting kind of honed in on this is the guy where the ball needs to go on 3rd and 7 when it's a big play. Like, he may see things that he wasn't seeing before. He may get to reads that he wasn't getting to before, and it might create more big plays for Georgia.
Graham, thank you very much for your coverage and also your time when you're joining us whenever you can. Graham Coffey, Dog Central, again, covering Georgia and also being a part of the segment with us on 365 Sports. We appreciate that. Phil Bennett around the corner. Tim Brando, I've said this now for a couple of weeks, but it appears, I said this last week, and of course he had a couple of doctor's appointments, but it appears Tim will be the possibility of Phil Bennett today, Tim Brando tomorrow. And if you didn't hear this, the Zach Gelb from CBS Sports Radio texted me after the last time we had him on a couple of weeks ago. He's going to start joining us when the season gets into early September on Wednesdays for a while, too, as soon as he gets off his national show on CBS Sports. When we come back, Phil Bennett, he's been gone for about a week and a half in the California country and wine country. He's next. This is 365 Sports. The Waco experience is an entirely different level if you have a membership to the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. A one-of-a-kind, luxurious chance for you to unwind, exclusive lounge area located in the heart of McLean Stadium. The Elite Club offers a 5-star member atmosphere for what you need when it comes to worker play. Master culinary team, outstanding hospitality, taking pampering to a whole new level. Weddings, milestones, businesses, birthdays, and more. We host the Academic All-Stars Banquet every year inside the McLean Stadium, hosted by the Baylor Club, and the food and the customer service, the amenities are fantastic. They have Baylor games, of course, at home, 5 of them this year, so you could have a chance to be there when they play at home. 365 Sports is connected to the Baylor Club. We appreciate Mike Mosel, and you can be a part of what they do. The next private event, if you're interested, by calling 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree for more information, calendars, upcoming special events. Say yes to the Baylor Club today.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential. Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Katie Rader sent this to me in a direct message. The largest city that has anybody connected to college football is L.A. Nearly 4 million people. Chicago would be 2.7. That would, of course, include Northwestern, among others. Houston and Dallas are 4th and 5th largest cities when it comes to anybody that's a part of the Autonomy 4. And, of course, you could add Fort Worth into the mix. It gets even higher. Just a random. The lowest, the smallest, Clemson, South Carolina. 17,866 reside in Clemson, South Carolina. But there's also some attaching surrounding cities. Phil Bennett, back from a great vacation in the wine country in California, joins us. And everybody's fired up, Coach, that you're back with us today. How was vacation? Do you just chill, relax, and sip wine?
You know, we get up, we work out, and then we start on the day of eating and drinking. and I will tell you this, though, Smoke, we don't last very long. By 8:30 or 9, we're down. And we never get out of hand. We always sort of take it slow and easy. It's really, my wife isn't a banker, a mortgage banker. And I told her, I said, when we got back yesterday, she started getting that bass back in her voice. I told her, I said, well, I can tell vacation's about over. You've got that work voice starting to get on. I said, you need to keep the vacation voice a little bit longer. But you can tell she was tensing up. I don't have to worry about that. Since I'm retired, I'm pretty much every day's a vacation.
Phil, Gary Patterson was at Baylor for a little bit, consulting. He was actually at practice today, as a matter of fact, but he's no longer there in an official capacity. And can you kind of describe what being a consultant is like, and how that works, and that sometimes you can fit in, sometimes you can be there a year, and sometimes your work can be done probably pretty quickly.
You know, Paul, I'll tell you something. I've been fortunate enough to visit with a lot of coaches in a consulting role, both in college and the NFL. And I find myself rather quickly with the people that you're dealing with, is this head coach mandated, or is there really something they want, from your wisdom and your path to use? I've seen both sides of it. I went to one place in particular. They were curious, the whole staff, they were wanting to learn about the Reed game, college Reed game, and it was a lot of fun. And then I went to another place, and I could tell it was mandated by the head coach, and there wasn't a lot of interest in the input that I could give them. So I think it varies on what you're looking for. And I would think at Baylor, just looking at their young staff defensively, that's where Dave thought, this guy could come in and really help Matt and those guys grow as coaches.
What was your first reaction when you just heard that he was going to be coming in to help, and especially with a guy like Aranda who's taking more control of the defense? I mean, do their styles even align really defensively in what they're trying to do?
I think they have some similarities, and Gary was a player at Kansas State when I was the defensive coordinator at Iowa State. I've known Gary for a long time, and Gary loves football, and I think I told David this. I think one of the things last year that was a problem. I've said it, and it's not a much critical as it was just something that I saw. I didn't see Dave interacting, helping the defense. I thought when he hired Matt, who I think is a good young coach, he's a learning coach. I knew he was going to have somebody over him that guided him. And, I still remember the last drive against West Virginia when we had to stop them. Dave was not a factor in that drive, and it baffled me why you would put Matt in that position and consequently lose the game where, now I hear that he's all in. So I thought Gary could be that sort of buffer between them.
Yeah, and Aranda, when he came in studio, once they made the decision he was coming back, admitted that. We asked him that question about the last drive against West Virginia, were you on the headsets? And he admitted he wasn't. You could tell that it was kind of hard for him to, but that's just the way they ran. And I just text somebody that would know, is this a random thing? Are they back to dating again? And he said, I just think a friend attending practice. He was jotting some things down and notes and also visiting with Dave. You think he just missed football so much?
Well, we all do. We all, I've got a little agenda the next 2 weeks where I'm going to go. But, I would think so. I think Dave is a guy, I told you back when I was the coordinator at Pittsburgh, I used to have late night calls. Dave would call me when he was at Hawaii. He's a football guy. And I think that Dave realizes that he's got to get more involved this year. And from what I'm told, he is more involved. And I think Gary will be a nice sounding piece for him. Gary knows a lot of football. He's seen a lot. And I told you this. I don't get caught up in the past and what we were. I always had tremendous amount of respect for Gary. And I knew what he could do for Baylor. And I was sort of excited about it. And I'm glad that he came to practice, and I think he can help those guys. I say this again. I think Matt is a good young coach. He just needs a little guidance.
When he walked away then, it was very abrupt when he did. Was that a surprise to you? Do you think that that's just two guys that have different philosophies? They're not listening? Or why do you think that happened?
Well, first of all, it's a location thing. Gary he's inbred in Fort Worth, and he was driving every day back and forth. He wasn't staying in Waco. And I would think dealing, with that situation, I think Gary's probably still wanting to coach. And I think, I don't know, and this is just pure speculation. I think that he looks and say, what's it going to look like if we don't get this thing going? You know, and I'm not saying he pulled out because he doesn't think, but he might just say, hey, I might be fresher and can do more if I just stay at home and try to get a job after the season. That's the only thing I can really think about.
How much do coaches always want to make sure they're not the smartest person in the room, and why would you not want to pick someone's brain like that?
I've said this. Knowledge is power. I've told my players every day. I have never gone around a coach that I laugh. I talked about one time I went into Soda High School, and there was a coach in there, and he was showing me something, and I'm telling you, this guy was brilliant. And we talked, and I think we all think, hey, we have to know it all. Well, that's not the case. One of the things I admit, every year I ever coached, I learned more than I did the year before. Mm-hmm. It's constant learning. You know, I heard a team doctor one time told me, I said, what keeps you invigorated with your job? He said, I learn something new every day. Every day in my job, I learn something new. And I think I thought to myself, I said, hell, that's me. Mm-hmm. That's what and if you're asking questions, you're learning. I love to go in the off season. I wouldn't go to as many defensive clinics as I would go to offensive line clinics, and I would go to offensive coordinator clinics. I wanted to know what they were teaching. What was I trying to stop? And I think, that's the thing that Dave, I think Dave's a seeker of answers. I think Gary and him, I really thought it could be something that would help, once again, the whole defensive staff to be more productive.
Phil, what do you think about Kalen DeBoer, first year, taking over for the greatest college football coach that's ever lived?
I like his confidence. One thing I know about Kalen DeBoer, of just watching him, he's comfortable who he is. He doesn't try to present an image. I don't think he's intimidated by Nick being around. I don't think he's going to mandate, hey, we got to keep this or keep, even though it's been on a smaller level until last year, he's always been a winner. He's always surrounded himself with people that he believes in. He has a very good staff. I just really believe that he's a guy that when they were looking, they said, this guy's not going to be intimidated by the situation. Now, with that said, they've got their work cut out for them. I don't believe that. I think Nick had a presence there, an edge that gave them a toughness that many schools didn't have. Whether they get that back with the guy from South Alabama on defense, I don't know. But I think he's a good coach, and I think it might take some time, maybe not with Milrose, but I think he will do fine there.
Phil, you got 4 teams going from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, 4 teams going from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. You got Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. Who amongst those teams do you feel like there will be a bit of a learning curve or a buffer period to try to get acclimated, or do you think that even exists at all going from one power conference to another?
I think so much is generated through the media. I read something the other day. Oregon's never fared well against power teams, and I'm telling you, I've watched Oregon. They can play with anybody. I don't think they'll have a problem. I've got a friend that is coaching right now at USC. He's an offensive line coach, Josh Henson. They're seeing there's a lot of teams that will fit in fine in both leagues. Now, the ones that are usually the lower level teams might struggle. And I'm not saying that what I'm interested to see is the time. I mean, you're going to have everybody leaving on Thursday. I mean, it's going to be a long damn week when USC has to go to Michigan State, and for a conference game, and it's going to be the logistics is something, and everybody out there in California, I was reading the LA Times, they're talking about getting people involved in the timing, sleeping patterns, all those things. But I think the teams will I think that they will all fit into their new league. I'm anxious. One of the teams I'm anxious to watch is Oklahoma in the SEC. People have forgotten that Oklahoma beat the stuffing out of Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. People say, well, it's a bowl game. That game was not even close, and Alabama was good. Oklahoma, when I was at Baylor, I think, and you might correct me here, Smokey, I think for 2 years in a row they played Tennessee and dominated them. I mean, it wasn't even a close game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm anxious to see. Plus, I've got a vested interest there with Seth being there. I think there'll be a team that will be a surprise to some people.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Seth Luttrell. There was a story written about him. I think it was today by John Hoover. Not the new normal. Is that like what the offense he runs that Oklahoma has seen through all these changes that people are used to, but there's something a little bit more unique about what he does?
Seth is a lot like what we were at Baylor, what Art was, what Kendall does. And I think Jeff sort of got away from it a little bit. But I mean, they're going to be physical. I mean, they're tight ends. Yeah, you remember how we used to run the ball with our tight ends being, and I think now they're going to be both tempo and non-tempo, and which we evolved to. So, that's the thing that I think that you're going to see. They really feel good about their Arnold, their quarterback. That they've lost some guys on the O-line, but they feel like their skill level is at both in the secondary and receiver are better than any time since they've been there. So Seth is very he's calculated. He's not a big talker, but he feels like they could be good.
So we saw TCU announce, I guess it was a week or two ago, that they had brought on board officially Dana Holgorsen and also Todd Graham. And I know they got Ken Wilson also on the staff. They got a handful of head coaches, former head coaches on that staff. And I remember Sonny mentioned it to us at Big 12 Media Days, I think it was, that Andy Avalos will be going up against Dana Holgorsen in terms of, getting that look from the offensive side of things. And then Kendall will be going up against Todd Graham or learning from Todd Graham. What do you think of those pairings and just kind of what Sonny's created there in terms of the former head coaches and the, the challenges that come with that, but also the benefits?
Well, first of all, I think you've got two guys that have had great success at a high level. I've sort of mentored Todd Graham. And he's a football coaching dude. Love working for him. He's a football guy. I think he'll be good for Kendall and Sonny. Doesn't want, he's not looking for attention. He's had the attention. And I think the same thing with Dana. Dana's trying to get his feet reset. And all we got to think back 2 years ago, Houston was on a roll. I don't know what happened, but we all know nowadays everybody's got a short fuse when you're not doing well. So I think it's going to help both Andy. It's going to help Kendall. And to have guys, I think it's going to help Sonny. Sonny's going to go in there and say, hey, we're fixing to go play Texas Tech on a Thursday or what. Just program things that really his ops guy doesn't know the answer. But he's got two guys that have done it at a very high level at big schools, and they can say, how would you do this? Now, and you know what? Both of those guys are smart enough to say the right thing, say their thoughts, and not press it. That's one of the things I told Kendall. I said, this is a win-win for you. I used to walk in the offensive coordinator's room when we were anywhere. When I was with Art, I said, what would you do versus this? What would you do? Because, those discussions are what make you better. And I think that's a smart move. I think that both, like I said, are mature enough that they'll know their role. I don't think anybody's going to get, intimidated, but they'll also have another set of eyes and they'll give them some thought. I think you're weak here, you're not as good here, or you're good here. That will give them some other eyes seeing what they're doing.
Phil, coaches aren't coaches, you and everyone that's been a part of the profession, very anal about schedule, about not the games you're playing, but every day, the schedule, meetings, film work, practice. Is that going to be challenged with what you brought up earlier? I wrote this down when you mentioned these games. Ohio State playing and whatever. Is it going to have to learn on the fly?
Yes, it is. I don't know if you knew this, but it always blew my mind. And, I live in College Station, and Jimbo Fisher, it pissed me off that they would leave. I don't care if they were playing in Lubbock. They would go on Thursday. And I learned this way back from Henry Ballard, Bill Snyder. RC was like this. Get a schedule and don't upset the schedule too much. Bill Snyder, we would get to a place at 5:00 on Friday because we would leave as late as we could just so the guys could stay on their normal schedule. A&M would leave on Thursday after practice. And these kids, they justified it by saying we're taking tutors. Well, that was BS. The tutors didn't work on those games. They ended up spending millions of wasted dollars. And I truly believe that's why they haven't won an away game in years. You get kids off their schedule and you're not getting maximum ability.
Well, you have a plane that takes you right there. It doesn't seem like if you got to leave on Thursday because you got to catch a flight, I get that. But if you've got a plane, especially
was the only school in America that did that. And I told the AD that it's the stupidest. I would tell anybody to listen. It was the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Now, if you're flying from Seattle to Ann Arbor, Michigan, you might have an issue. That might be, to get acclimated, it might be a doable thing. But I just never understood it.
Phil, what do you think about Mike Elko and maybe a return to, he's the most coached like R.C. Slocum since R.C. Slocum, really. Defense first, not a lot of like frills with Mike Elko. R.C. is not a guy with a lot of frills either.
I think that Mike has, he's sure saying the right thing. I like his thought process. I went out last spring. I was invited to watch him practice. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of coaching going on, not a lot of wasted time between things going on. I am a Colin Klein fan, and so with Mike running the defense basically and Colin, I think without question that they're going to have some potential there. I think that quarterback play. If Weigman's a guy, which I don't know, he's shown signs, but also shown signs he couldn't do it. If they can get that, and supposedly defensively, Mike has said, I talked to RC today, and he sort of seems to agree with it. He said his front seven is maybe as good as he's ever had, so that's a good start.
All right, well, since you brought up Colin Klein, we have to bring up the fourth down or the goal line stand in a game where they came in highly ranked, number one in the country, and you guys beat them up badly.
As high as you can get ranked.
Yeah, they were one. There's no like above one. What was that game? And there were certain games that kick-started what you guys did. But looking back at that game in that season, what did that mean to the program and to the defense and overall?
I think I might have told you this before, Smoke, but that season we lost for a 4 or 5 game span. We lost like 3 of our starters in the secondary, and we were still trying to get it together defensively. We weren't gelling. We weren't playing very good. We had that catastrophe at West Virginia, played terrible at Texas. We go to OU and go in, and Bryce Hager had played bad. had really played poorly. We were actually missing, we just weren't gelling. And I moved Rodney to starting linebacker, bench Bryce. We play OU, and we played pretty good. We came back, had a chance. We lost the game, but defensively we played good. They come in. Of course, I know Coach. I have a history with him. And we made checks. I told Bryce, I said, you'll either win or lose this game for us, because they had certain tendencies, and we made calls off that tendencies. And Colin Klein to this day still laughs. He said, Coach, your middle linebacker was calling our plays. But we could do it because Bryce was such a smart guy. That game, along with Lake Sistrunk, I mean, they couldn't handle Lake. If you remember, I mean, every time he broke the line of scrimmage, he was gone. Their safeties could not tackle him. And I think that game propelled us to finish the season. You correct me if I'm wrong. I think we had 5 straight wins. We beat them. We beat Texas Tech. We beat Oklahoma. The big win was Oklahoma State, if you remember, to go to the bowl in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I told you after the game, you came on the bus.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yep.
I said, we will win the conference next year.
You did.
And we had matured. We were already there offensively. And we matured, and I knew that was the start, when we won those games, starting with Kansas State and beating Oklahoma State, which was very good, and then trouncing UCLA. I thought we had the mixings of getting it right.
Still can't believe that in the post game, I was sitting there looking through the stats, and talking to Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, former Baylor defensive coordinator, but elsewhere, that they had thrown like 12 or 13 passes. When I said that to Art, I remember him like, really? I think he kind of knew that, but he didn't realize it was that low.
It kept Florence from breaking RG3's record. He was going to break his season record. But you know what they did? It was crazy. This is where I always tell people, coaching matters. They were so afraid of the pass. This is a testimony to Art Brown. Their safeties were 15 yards deep because they were so afraid. They did that NFL 4 cross deal, and I'm telling you, all we did is check runs, and it was like Art was, and he didn't care. He said, I didn't know what kind of death we were going to cause, but they were dying. And he said, whether it be run or pass. And I think Florence was like, I think we threw 12 passes. I think he completed 10. I mean, it was huge.
How many former players contact you now just to say hi?
I had a great call the other day from Colin Brent. I talked to all of them. I talked, this deal on November 3rd has got a lot of them. And I laughed. I told one of them, and I'm not going to tell you who, I said, it's surprising me the way I wore your ass out. You want to see me again.
Oh, my God.
He said, I'm not coming. He said, you need to tell me I'm not coming if you're not coming.
I bet you, and I won't because you don't want to say it, but the next time I talk to you, I can get it within 2 guesses.
Well, it's got to be Orion Stewart, right?
No. I know. I don't think that would have been my second guess. My first one.
It's his teammate.
Oh, Ahmad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those two were like, that was a combination from hell, but also a talented young guy.
Yeah. Hey, I was never, people told me, man, you always act like you were pissed. I said, no. I said, those two knuckleheads, I said, it was a love-hate relationship. I loved them and they hated me. I was on them, but they will tell you, we always made it fun. It was I always laugh. Bryce Hager and I talk, and Bryce will tell me, goes, it used to amaze me how you could chew me out all practice and get on me, do this. We're walking off the practice field. Like, how's your old man doing? What's going on? And he goes, then hell, I didn't want to talk to you. And you're asking me about my dad, my brother. I said, well, you just got to flip a switch. I said, it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. What does that event mean? And I remember when I text you, and obviously it's for pretty much who wants to come back, and I think it's great that they're doing that.
Yeah.
What's the overall thought process? Because we had Bryce Petty on after that was announced.
Right. Yeah. You know, hey, so many of those kids are going to be back. I'm telling you, I'm coming. I'm coming, and I wouldn't. That's a special time in my life because I thought we did something that was. It wasn't an ordinary. You know, we'd won the Big East at Pitt, but this was different. You know, Art had went there, the challenge, just like Coach Taft and I talked about. What they did in '74 was special. You know, and you know, and I think ours was double special because we were able to do it back-to-back years. And so many of the kids that we had brought in there were involved in both of them. So it was just, it just makes me smile.
Well, I'm going to ask you this. Do you feel like that there's some that aren't going to want to come back just because they're still kind of just still hurting a little bit?
You know, the ones I've talked to, the guys that were contributing, no.
Good.
I think these people are guys. You know, they understand. There was, and I've told you this. We were slandered. There's no doubt about it, and it was handled horribly. And you know, I could go on and on, but I'm not. The thing that's important to me is the guys who did it. It's a player's game, and the guys who played the game and gave all of us so much fun and just satisfying wins and great efforts. They're coming back. Those guys will come back because they know that what they did at Baylor was special. And I think that their time here. I've told people this many times. You know, our kids who were here with us, they had fun at Baylor. They respect and they played hard for Baylor. So I don't think there might be some. I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think the majority of those kids, it's important to them that they get back. And I don't know if because of what happened in 16, if they ever got the total awards thing that they should have got from 13 and 14. But yes, I think they'll be back.
All right, I got one more question. This comes from the chat room. What were your thoughts as a coach? Coaches are paranoid because, you know, you want to make sure that people don't know what you're doing, but then everybody sees everything. What are your thoughts about what should happen with Connor Stallions?
First of all, that's been going on since the game was started.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm talking about from stealing signals to you know, Barry Switzer. You know, do you remember the Darrell Royal Barry Switzer thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, having a guy, you know, I can remember a Hall of Fame coach telling me when he was a GA at a place that he went and jogged around Nebraska's track and watched them practice. And he dressed up as a professor, wore glasses and a stocking hat and jogged around that. You know, it's been going on forever. If I can say one thing, I've worked for people that you know, I have never in my life felt like I would need to compromise my integrity. And I've told people this same thing at Baylor, cheating or I think it was done. I think without question, the coaches were involved. Harbaugh was involved, whether he knows it or not. I'm not saying he was directly involved, but when you have guys, Partridge and, you know, all of them going, the D-line, the head coach now going to Connor Stallions, they were involved. And it was an edge that they chose to take. And it's been done through the beginning of the time. Some coaches do it more than others. I had a guy one time I worked for asked me to do something, and I said, no, I won't do that. You know, I'm not one of those guys. I'm not wasting time trying to steal signals or get this. I want to win the right way. And I think that 99% of the coaches do that. Now, I've had guys tell me. I've had a guy tell me when I was the head coach at SMU, we lost a couple of close games with him. One of his coaches got fired. First thing he did, called me. He goes, I want to tell you something. He said, we've had your signals and we've watched you practice, and we had a guy go in your office and get a game plan.
What?
This true story. Yeah. Came in my office and got a game plan, and he told me, hey, when I was at Baylor and we were at the Cotton Bowl, they got our practice film because we didn't take our practice film out of what do you call it? The machine up there. Yeah, they ended up with our practice.
Michigan State?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Well, who was supposed to have taken it out of the machine? Is that guy?
It was like all the bowls supposed to be protected.
Right.
And they, and it wasn't. I mean, they saw it, and one of their coaches left, and called me, told me, sure it is. And you know what's funny about it? It had nothing to do. I mean, of course, we were up. We had the game won. We made a mistake by not running the ball out, and just a number. It had nothing to do it, but just the fact. One of the things that was they saw something on it. If you remember, they got a used onside kick, and he told me they used because we do on Thursday we do onside hand things. They saw something and they knew where they were going, and it ended up hitting on them. They felt like it helped them, get the ball back. In that last 3 minutes of the game. So in my answer to you, it's been done everywhere. And you can say what they did was totally illegal, but in different things, whether stealing signs, getting playbooks, watching, having some high school coach watch them. I mean, it's still going to go on. I believe that. Anybody, the one time that somebody gets caught is not going to end it.
Phil, thank you very much, man. Everyone's glad you're back with us, and glad you had a great time in California, and we'll see you soon.
I'm looking forward to the season and visiting with you guys.
Thank you very much. Phil Bennett with us in 40 minutes or so. I know it's a very lengthy segment with him. I want him to write 5 books. But thanks to Bobby B. Super Chat for $19.99. Outstanding segment with Phil Bennett. Looking forward to many more this season. We appreciate you, Bobby B., for doing that. We also had one from Todd Stockbroker for Coach Bennett pregame show, pre-show game interview. $2 Super Chat. Retired Stockbroker, thank you very much for that, too. So we do use some of the segments with him during the year that we have been able to find pieces of it and put it in our pregame show before Baylor plays whoever it might be in their 12 regular season games. All right, when we come, man, he's just so many stories. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. Baylor alumni engagement. If you're a Baylor alum, and you're trying to put together once football season starts, or even when they get into basketball season, some sort of a watch party. If you're looking for help to put it together and get the word out in your city, it's easy. Contact the Baylor Alumni Engagement Department. Doug Furch, of course, does a great job. They're in charge of all of those around the state, the tour with Dave Aranda during the summer, your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni, Baylor Alumni Engagement.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. So sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com. You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome in to Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Use our promo code 365sports when you go to get 10% off your order, and keep an eye on when the next auctions are popping up by going to bidonbeef.com. Smokey is very excited about his gigantic pack of sirloins he's got coming. The best Wagyu beef right there from TexasBeefHouse.com. Top 25 offenses. So this week will be top 25 offenses. Last week was top 25 defenses. And next week, Garrett and I are going to build the perfect college football roster down to the head coach.
I like it. I'm
so
excited.
22 starters, a head coach, a kicker, and a punter. My apologies to long snappers, but I think it's better if you toil in anonymity. Secret agents, as it will. But this week, we go to the top 25 offenses. So think about that. Send in your suggestions to me at Paul Catalina at Twitter, and I will do research on all of it. Top 25 offenses as we jump into it. Number 25, Colorado. Now look, efficiency, not the name of the game. Big plays, absolutely. If they can get their running back game going. Dallin Hayden is there. They've got other guys they're ready to go at Colorado that should be an upgrade over what they've had, although losing Dylan Edwards does hurt. The offensive line should be better because it can't be much worse, and they've got one of the better quarterbacks in the country in Shadur Sanders. This is an offense that should go, but remember, they are this low because they are not efficient. They only threw, they didn't run the ball, and Shadur Sanders got sacked way more than any human being ever should in their life last season, so they've got to cut down on that to be higher than this, but they are explosive enough to make it on the list because of their big play potential. Number 24, Texas State, the Bobcats. Sadly, this is the best Bobcat graphic I could find. We need the Texas State social media department to start making some gifs of Bobcats. But G.J. Kenny has an electric offense. It is going to be very interesting to see with quarterback Jordan McLeod this year. It is what G.J. Kenny does. He lights it up. He's coached guys like Cam Ward. He's been all over coaching light-em-up offenses. This is what Texas State does. Baylor experienced it in the first game last year and basically sent their season into a tailspin. Texas State, a team to watch out for, and they're looking to get back to a bowl and drink all the beer again. That's the goal for the fan base, is to dry up a bowl game. That's what they want to do. Number 23, Penn State. This should be higher, and a lot of lists that aren't mine have them higher.
Penn State's offense, when they play teams that are not as good as Penn State, is pretty damn fun to watch. Drew Aller's a pretty damn good quarterback. Doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. They've got a good running game. They've always got a fantastic offensive line. But when they play teams at the same level or a little better, Penn State's offense is non-existent. But still efficient enough, again, to get on this list, and you take some step forward, and you get into the playoff. Number 22, Texas A&M. This one, I wrestled with the bottom of this list a little bit. West Virginia was a team that didn't get in because I've got to see them be a little bit more efficient passing the ball, and I'm not sure about their wide receivers, but they could have been on this list. But A&M, I think with their wide receivers, with Connor Wegman, with the running backs, even despite the loss of Reuben Owens, should be really good on offense and efficient. And it's not all about big plays. I think Colin Klein will have them running a more efficient, cleaner system that most people haven't seen, unlike Jimbo Fisher's offense that came with a 2014 vintage on it. Just like a wine. It did not, but it did not get better with age. Absolutely did not. And number 21, the last one for today, Mizzou. Let's see how the running game does. Cody Schrader kind of took it up a notch. We'll see how the new running backs, Marcus Carroll and others, handle it. But this guy right here is worth about 19 spots himself. Like, he's that good. Luther Burden, Brady Cook, a fantastic quarterback. Want to see it year over year at Mizzou, but still one of the top 25 offenses in the country. And they have what I think is the best overall wide receiver in the country right now in Luther Burden, in a class this year that's full of really top wide receivers. Luther Burden, to me, number one. And that's why this offense is 21. And I expected to see climb a little bit higher as the season goes on. That's going to do it for today's top 5. But tomorrow, numbers 20 through 16, coming at you. We're back to wrap it up now.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul. TexasBeefHouse.com. Again, you can go to TexasBeefHouse.com and look at what they have. And they ship product to the contiguous 48 states. Their next auction in another couple of weeks, we'll have more information on that, will be at the end of August. So Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, David Smoke back at our studio here on 365 Sports. We've covered the top 25. Is the top 25, Paul, release main thing of what it brings is discussion and promotion? How much does it mean to you? Does it mean that football's about 2 or 3 weeks away?
Yes, that's good that the official polls are out and we know all of that. So that's good. But, I mean, I remember when I was younger, I would get mad about it. You know, you'd see, like, oh, my God, how can they do this? Like, well, nobody's done anything yet. So you could just as easily disappoint and not even earn the spot that they gave you that you thought was too low. So
does it matter anymore with the college football playoff?
No, I think it matters less. I think it mattered a lot more because you could see the way they placed teams before and gave them a leg up in so many ways. But I think with more spots, it doesn't so much matter anymore if you're 20 or versus 12 to start off with. Although I do think that in the old system, it did matter a little bit because if you started off a lot higher and you were certain schools from certain leagues, you had more room to potentially slip and still be in an okay spot. Or you had a long shot to even be in the game to begin with if you started off unranked or whatever. Whereas now, I think it's like seeing preseason watch lists for awards. It's like, hey, here's what the most likely odds of the best are, and they're all eligible to win this thing. And that's basically what this is. Just has them in a ranking versus just having them on a list with no number beside them. But that's what it is to me now. It's basically a preseason watch list versus a preseason, and that's what it was. But I view it like a watch list now more than like rankings that matter. You know what I mean? It's more like just a preseason guide, basically.
Mack Rhodes is on that committee this year, isn't he?
Yeah. I want answers. Look, I'm I'm old.
Well, we don't get to talk to him anymore, but
I do think it would be interesting if they did one year where they didn't have rankings to start off with, and like you made teams like But I understand why that would be incredibly difficult
no
to do.
Preseason poll.
Yeah, but they wouldn't do that because TV won't allow that. Because
they want 1 against 4.
Yeah, they want
whatever,
one.
yeah.
They want that Florida State game at the very beginning of the year to have a number next to the team's names, and so I get why they won't do that, and I get why that's far more interesting for TV and for fans. Like I'm more apt to watch the game with the numbers beside the names for sure. But I do think there's that element of it that now it's not as important because you can start off unranked and you still have 1 in 12 shots to get into a college football playoff spot.
It doesn't matter where you are ranked. You're right.
When it was 4, like you kind of needed to start somewhere reasonable, or else it was like perfect season or bust, right? And so now it's a little bit more wide open, which I'm looking forward to.
Garrett, do you still have the graphic of what the playoff would have looked like based on today's preseason rankings?
I believe so.
I think we could have fun with this.
There we go.
Okay.
Hold on.
No. That's Brett McMurphy.
Let me find it. Here we go.
So based on today's top 25, this would have been the college football playoff just on the rankings and what and who would have won a conference title. Let's do this. First game. Anybody go against Oregon against Boise State?
No. Le'Veon Bell's not there to punch anybody anymore.
Notre Dame and Ole Miss.
I'll take Ole Miss.
Craig?
Are we picking the games?
Yeah, just kind of.
Okay. Yeah. Ole Miss. No, I don't know. I got Notre Dame, I think.
Okay. I'll take Notre Dame in that game too. Michigan, Texas.
I'll take Texas.
Texas, although like they're getting really blown up huge before this season has started, and I get why. But I'm kind of turning on them from like now I want to see them prove it a little bit. I feel like they're being given a lot after last year, but I understand why. They have a lot coming back. Still though, yeah, I would take Texas because there are far more questions about Michigan. But if Anthony Orji ends up being like a star or whatever, then, that could change the narrative, and that'll be a fun game early on.
Imagine this. Texas, when they were in that so-called wilderness for a decade, they were getting a lot of times at the beginning.
They still would have been exactly where they are.
No.
Except they've proven it now. So, yeah,
they have meat on the bone, as I said before, meat and potatoes with what they've done. Penn State, Alabama. That game would be in Tuscaloosa. What a great scene that would be.
I'll take Alabama.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'd take Alabama here. Yeah, I'd take Alabama.
This doesn't mean it's going to go this way as we close it out today on this Monday. Oregon then would play Utah. Based on Utah would be the number 4 seed, but this would be at a bowl site.
I'll take Oregon in what's going to be a
they would be the number.
Game.
They would be the runner-up basically to Ohio State in the Big Ten. Yeah.
I'll take Oregon, but I think that Utah will have.
It's not like they haven't played each other.
Well, yeah.
I wonder what Utah's record has been the last 10, 15 years against Oregon. Of course, Oregon this year. Craig?
I'd probably take Oregon just based on nothing other than what we know about them right this very moment. Yeah, if they beat Boise State, I think they'd probably get out of that game relatively clean and would be still pretty good shape for the Utes at a neutral site.
As long as they avoided the Statue of Liberty play against Boise State in the last couple of minutes of the game.
Thank you for the reminder.
Why do they? He just got back from vacation. Don't shove him down a well.
I didn't mean to do that. that bothered me too, man. I love watching him play. That game and the Oregon game, which is another bad scar, those are the ones that probably watching Oklahoma.
The Pac-12 refs blatantly cheated on national television and gave Oregon a game, even though there was multiple, camera pieces of evidence of why they was.
The most multiple piece of evidence was a player coming out from the pile with the ball in his hand.
That game didn't get enough scrutiny.
Yeah,
I mean, it got scrutiny at the time, but honestly, still looking back at that, if you ever want to say this is rigged, that was a perfect example where you're not just crazy person talking. You could see why people would believe that the whole damn thing's rigged. Yeah.
Did you want to? Well, before you go on, do you want to bring up the first time a girl broke his heart or anything like that?
No, it's never happened, Paul. Breaking the hearts only goes one direction, pal.
You know what? If Utah wins the Big 12, that means they probably went 11-2 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not
worst.
That's
probably to be the number 4 spot on here.
Well, they're going to win. They're up because
they don't get automatically.
No.
Yeah.
But that means they're pretty highly ranked.
But I'm saying if you won the Big 12, but you're 8-4, then you're not going to be the number 4 seed with a bye to start off
No,
the playoffs.
Boise State would be the number 4 seed because they would be the highest-ranked G5 team, right? Yeah. All right, Notre Dame and Georgia.
Give me the Dogs.
Okay. Texas and Florida State.
I mean,
you have to recluse yourself.
No, I'm not recusing myself.
You have to recluse yourself.
No, look, I've been waiting for this game to happen.
Recluse yourself.
I've been waiting for this game to happen for the last 25 years. So, no. I will go to Atlanta, Georgia myself.
All right, this means that they won the ACC.
Yeah.
And obviously probably pretty high. Maybe they got upset by Miami or
beating another SEC team would be a huge thing for them for their application. So I think it would be
They
good.
could beat a Big Ten team, but it wouldn't matter because they're not accepted to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
All right.
We're a dumb guy
Craig,
school, apparently.
Florida State, Texas.
I mean, if Florida State's getting the bye, I mean, I'm probably going with them here, but we have no details whatsoever. Yeah. You got the bye, so I think you're probably in much better shape than Texas having played Michigan. But I would love to see Texas, Florida State because it's never happened. Like it's never
Not
actually
once.
happened.
That's
So
right.
that would be a first time ever matchup, which would be pretty cool to see because that doesn't happen a lot.
Alabama, Ohio State.
I mean, on paper, you have to go Ohio State, right? You're supposed to because that's the team that we're here. And if they don't win the national title, basically the season's a failure. I do think they're slightly more talented, but I think you're splitting hairs here.
But here's what's fun.
I'll take the Buckeyes.
No matter who you take. That means, let's say, if Texas was to get in the semifinals, they'd have to beat Michigan, Florida State, and if they were to win, they'd have to play Alabama or Ohio State. That's what we talked about. That's just one of the examples. There's probably a dozen of them in that that you would have to win those games to get into the semis, win the semifinals, and then probably end up playing Georgia in what could be a rematch or maybe even a red-hot Oregon. Who knows?
Yeah, you're playing Georgia or Utah or any of those teams up top, and that's why I said before I left, and I'll maintain it, that whoever wins the playoff this year and pretty much every year, but especially I think this first year, it's going to be one of the greatest teams of all time. Now, maybe they have like 4 losses, but I still think you're going to be one of the greatest stories and teams of all time, one of the most interesting teams of all time because of what you just said. I mean, if you didn't get the bye, if you're somebody who didn't get the bye and won this outright, so if you're Texas, for example, you beat Michigan and then you beat Florida State and then you beat Ohio State or Alabama and then you go on and you beat Georgia and you're the net.
Yep.
I mean, who's better than you? Who's had a more impressive run ever in college football? 4 consecutive games. Now, there could be a Boise State ruins the party, so it's not like high seed, but even still, there's no scenario where no matter how many upsets there are, you're not going through 4 rounds or even 3 rounds unscathed without playing somebody pretty tough. So it's going to be a grind.
In that scenario, let's say they would have beat Boise State, then they beat Utah. So that would be, with all due respect, that might get them into a couple of rounds without it having to be a Michigan, a Texas, or a Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. But if Utah wins the Big 12, they're going to be highly ranked inside probably the top 6 or 7, 8 teams in the country, especially if they're the number 4 seed. All right, S. Michael DeHart, thank you very much. As always, guys, a fantastic show. Always enjoy Coach Bennett. Also, Craig Smoke, welcome back to the Dragon.
Thank you.
Keep the fire going. Thank you, Bobby B, and all others who have said thank you for our show today, and the great guest, Arbuck. Thanks for what you just put in there, along with many of you that are in the chat room. The text line, by the way, which we do take your text during the day. Haven't had one of those since, of course, we've been out since Friday, 254-339-1122. Craig Smoke and Paul Catalina. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to Jack McKenzie and Emery Winter, who's dialing up and editing like a magician he is at 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Garrett Ross, thank you very much. Tell Parker we said hi. I'm David Smoke. Have a great night. Tomorrow, back at it. Paul's Triple Option at 1, and we're live again at 3. This is 365 Sports.